IB Nation, welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Happy Wednesday, everybody, and we have a lot to talk about today. It is Wednesday, and you guys know what that means. It is buy, sell, hold day for us here, but we're going to jump to that in a little bit because first, Notre Dame picked up another offensive lineman recruit for the 2026 class yesterday, and that is where we're going to begin today's show. So yesterday, actually, I believe it was when we were going live with our Tuesday show, the news broke that 2026 offensive tackle Charlie Tom was going to commit to the University of Notre Dame. So he is from Avon, Connecticut. He's a 6'6", 270-pound offensive tackle, plays at Avon Old Farms High School. He's actually, I believe, a fifth-year player. I read that.
And this will be his first year at Avon Old Farms. He played high school, his 4 years of high school at Darien High School in Connecticut. So he's a Connecticut native, but not all high schools offer post-grad type situations. It's kind of like, Trev, remember back in the day when kids would go to like Fork Union Military Academy or Hargrave Military Academy for sort of that extra year? Back then, a lot of times it was for either A, you were being under-recruited, or B, for academics.
Okay.
This is A, he was under-recruited coming out of high school. He put on a bunch of weight and just went from it being a tight end to a Division I offensive lineman. So it was a smart decision by him, and it worked out because he's probably going to an Ivy League school if he goes right out of high school. Now he's getting offered by Notre Dame, Penn State, Boston College, Nebraska, a lot of schools like that. But yeah, he was originally part of the 2025 class nationally, and then reclassified to 26 because of the prep school year.
Well, good deal. Well, you guys know how we get down here. We are going to talk about backstory, where Brian's going to fill us in about what went into the recruitment of Charlie Tom. We're going to get into class impact. And unfortunately, our guy Vince isn't here with us today. Sounds like he's driving back from Hillsdale, but we are going to break down some film. He's going to miss out on his favorite part. You snooze, you lose. Sorry, Vince. Sorry, buddy. But we're going to break down some film, and then we're going to talk about what's next. But, of course, after that, we are going to dive into buy, sell, hold. But, Brian, what all went into the recruitment of Charlie Tom?
Well, this is an interesting one, Trevor, because he wasn't really on the radar not that long ago, for a lot of the reasons that I talked about. He was a kid that, we're still, as of this morning, ESPN and Rivals have still yet to even grade him. He's listed as a prospect, and that's it. No grade, not a 1-star, not a 2-star, not a 3-star. He's just graded. And then up until, as of a week ago, the only site that had actually graded him at all was On3. So props to On3 for that one. But it was a situation where he was a young man that going into the winter didn't really have that impressive of an offer list. And then, people started kind of looking at his film, and he got a lot bigger as a senior. He was, you saw the junior film, 2023 junior film. He was closer to Preston Frizzell than he was what he is now, and he was bigger than Preston Frizzell, but he wasn't that much bigger than Preston Frizzell. Then he puts on a pretty decent amount of weight as a senior, not bad weight, just kind of physically got bigger, got up to 250, 260, and he's still playing tight end, caught 30 passes for 400 yards as a 6'6", probably 240, 250 plus guy. So he kind of starts to get, a little bit more recruiting attention. And then I don't know what went into this. I've yet to talk to Charlie about this, but he basically makes the decision to go to Avon Old Farms instead of, picking one of the schools that, that we're looking at him. So he goes into this spring and he starts going to camps and starts going to workouts. And all of a sudden he gets offered by Army in February. He gets offered actually BC. No, that's just a school visit, not even offers. He gets offered by the first big offer he got that I can see, according to Rivals. He got offered by Syracuse in May. Then UConn offered him, then JMU, Buffalo, Liberty, some Ivy League schools, and then all of a sudden it starts picking up. He gets offered by Wake Forest in May. He gets offered by Nebraska in the middle of May, Virginia Tech in the middle of May. A couple days later, it's Michigan State, then Stanford. Then he gets Penn State starts looking at him. Penn State offered him during his official visit on the 13th, and so you could see him in a month just blows up as a recruit. Well, he had gone to a couple prop spec camps and worked out. And that ultimately, my understanding, is what led to him getting offered by Notre Dame. He also went to one of the Notre Dame camps this June, worked out in front of the staff, looked really good. They were impressed, and so they decided to offer him. this is one of those deals, Trev, where if Notre Dame offered Charlie Tom, it was gonna be Notre Dame. And I was actually reading an intel piece. Buddy had sent me something that because we were kind of joking about how Notre Dame is just smashing Penn State in recruiting, and he was like, "Could you imagine if this happened?" And he sends me this intel thing that somebody, I don't know if it's 247 or On 3, that Penn State had done. I think it was On 3, Penn State side had done, where they were talking about how, Penn State was in a great position for him, and, they really liked him, and he really liked Penn State. He was doing an official visit. They did a great job of throwing out the offer, et cetera, et cetera. But that way, Charlie had told, apparently, again, this is me saying what someone else is reporting, so I want to give due respect to them. This isn't my intel. This is something that they said. Apparently, he told the Penn State staff that if Notre Dame offers him, he's going to Notre Dame. So their thought was, well, if we miss on Grayson McHugh, we'll be good because we can go get Charlie Tom and, still have him, add him to the class with Kevin Brown. Well, then Notre Dame Notre Dame offers him Monday night. There's some reasons why they offered him. I'll get into those. This is one of those post-signing day backstory things that I'm going to share. But some things happened, and it led to Notre Dame offering him a scholarship. Well, Grayson McHugh commits the same day. And so now you're like, okay, well, now you've got Grayson McHugh. You've offered Charlie Tom. He's a guy that Joe Rudolph wanted to take. There were some conversations among the staff, and they decided, okay, let's offer him as well. He immediately sets up an official visit. And, the minute they offered him, Trev, it was pretty much, when's he going to commit, not if he's going to commit. And so what was really cool, one of the coolest parts about this whole thing, because we all dream of as kids, like, man, I hope that someday I'm a Notre Dame fan that can maybe get offered a scholarship by Notre Dame. We think of, you probably have some pictures of when you were a little kid going to Notre Dame games with your dad and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
On his commitment thing, if you scroll to the next photo, it's him as a little kid at a Notre Dame game rocking Notre Dame gear.
That's awesome.
This is a kid that grew up as a Notre Dame fan. This was kind of like, he's like Rudy with more size and talent. I mean, as an insult, Rudy was little and it was amazing what he did. This is a 6'6", 270-pound kid. And I just think that part of it's just really cool. I don't know what kind of a player he's going to be. I just think it's awesome that a kid that just grew up dreaming of wanting to play at a place like Notre Dame gets that job. And honestly, I think that this is my read of the situation. This is not anything I've been told. I think that factored into why Notre Dame was willing to bring him in as a sixth offensive lineman. Because this is a young man that is, if he never plays a meaningful down of football in his Notre Dame career, is going to be happy that he was on the football team at Notre Dame and he's going to get a degree from Notre Dame. And if he ends up being a really good player, that's even better. But he's not going to, in my opinion, going to be a rock the boat, complaining, always have to be convincing him to not transfer and all those type of things. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think this is the kind of kid that just loves being at Notre Dame and is like a Pat Coogan type, where even if he's not starting, he's still a leader of your team as a veteran. That's kind of what comes across to me with some of the things I've heard about this young man. So it just makes the story even cooler, because it's like, he's living out the dream that a lot of us had, which is that played football when we were young, is, man, how cool would it be to be recruited by and get offered by Notre Dame, and Charlie Tom's getting an opportunity to live out that dream. And I just think that's really cool.
No, that's awesome. I remember the days of going back and watching games with my dad when I was young. Definitely a dream. Didn't have the skill nor the money to get into Notre Dame, so here we are. But that is okay. I still love what I do now. Yeah. I know you touched on it a little bit, but let's dive into class impact here, Brian. Notre Dame already had 5 offensive linemen committed. Started out with a goal of at least 4. That next guy came along. That was Grayson McHugh. You take him as your 5. So what does Charlie Tom have as far as an impact value in this class, being the 6th offensive lineman?
Well, I mean, look, you didn't – starting this process, there was no desire to have 6 offensive linemen from everything I've been told. And at no point in time was I ever told, hey, this is where they're going to go with it. And I think this is a bit of a unique situation because of him being a late bloomer and the uniqueness of his skill set, meaning they wouldn't have continued recruiting like Claude and Puma or anyone else if if he doesn't pick the class. I really think a lot of this has to do with just the fact that his unique situation. And so when I look at the impact of the class, I think that's why you got the 6, is because of the uniqueness of him. Now, having said that, beyond the 6 part, and just looking at the benefits of a makeup of the class, Trev, there was a need, in my opinion, you needed at least one true tackle in this class. And I didn't love the fact that you had a 5-man class. We talked about this, where 4 of them primarily project inside. If the class above you can't stay on the edge, if there's some injuries there, some things along those lines, and all of a sudden you're in a tackle depth problem. And Notre Dame's kind of in that situation now where, you're an injury away from a true freshman in the spring, going out and having to be in your 2 deep. And we saw what happened last year with Notre Dame. And so they're in a position where I think what this does is the 3-man class of Will Black, Matty Augustine, and Owen Strebig, combined with now a 2-man class of Grayson McHugh and now Charlie Tom. You're a little healthier tackle situation moving forward. And while 6 is not ideal, you're looking at multiple kids in this class being red shirts, which means they're looking to replace the rising junior class, not Emil. Like I've seen people say, well, they decided to take 6 because they're, concerned that Emil Wagner and Billy Shrouth and Jagasol and Craig could all go pro or something like that. I'm like, yeah, but you're not bringing in Charlie Tom to help you in 2026 if all those guys go pro. But what he does do is, if for some reason that happens, and I think we would all agree that wouldn't be great for Notre Dame's 2026 team, but that likely means the 2025 team is amazing.
Yeah.
If all 4 of those guys are going pro. But what it does is now your depth is better in 2026. But a lot of these guys are going to be redshirt players. I mean, I think, look, all of them, I think I'd like to have them redshirt because I'd like to have them reshape their bodies and have extra years of eligibility. But I got to think Grayson McHugh's a redshirt. I got to think Charlie Tom's a redshirt. I think Sullivan Garvin's probably redshirt. Maybe Gregory Patrick's definitely a red shirt. Maybe Ben Nichols and Tyler Merrill could play as freshmen because they're so big and strong. But I'd like to redshirt all of them. So you're not bringing these guys in to replace guys that are going pro in 2026, but they do help you with your bottom line numbers. So you're not running into situations where, maybe they don't need to play, but if there's some injuries, I'd rather have Ben Nichols than not have him. I'd rather have, Grayson McHugh than not have him. And that's where I think he helps, is he gets you that second tackle in the class. And I think that's, take the 6 aside, that was a positive, just a true class impact positive.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about it. You stated it a lot on this show about how ideally Notre Dame has multiple tackles within a class because of their versatility once they do finally get on campus. So I agree. Brian, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to dive into some film on old Charlie Tom.
Sorry, we can do that. That sounds like fun. Let me pull up old Charlie's film. We'll watch his senior film because that's the film where he was obviously bigger.
Yeah.
He had filled out. And so we'll watch that part of it as soon as we get through this commercial. But he's an interesting player, Trev, because all the film we're going to see is of him playing tight end. And not tight end like the way that Joe Rudolph played tight end for Notre Dame in 2021, where he was basically an offensive lineman that they threw a number 45 jersey on to just get him in there as an extra blocker.
Yeah,
he had over 30 catches for over 400 yards last season. His high school coach, I read in an update that his high school coach said he had over 1,000 career high school yards. So he's a not your typical tight end, and part of that is because he did blow up so much here in his last year, but. You'll see him now. He is number 8. I watched, he'll line up in a position like this a lot in a wing, but he does a lot in the slot. He does a lot outside. I saw a route where he ran a comeback route as an ISO backside tight end, or, kind of lined up as a receiver. You see him going out on a screen. Is this like, oh my God, this kid could play tight end? And no, he cannot. But are you like, dude, this is a pretty athletic tackle? Yeah, you are. And that's what kind of makes this kid unique, Trev, is the first thing, and I'll let you kind of break it all down. But first thing you see is that's a big, long kid that moves pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. I watched his film a little bit yesterday. I watched it again a little bit today, and he's somebody that when I watch him on film, you can tell that he's going to project to be an offensive lineman at some point. You look at how he's built together. He has a really good frame, but he is athletic. Brian, to your point, he's not going to go to Notre Dame and become a tight end. He's not going to be,
Right.
giving James Flanagan a run for his money for,
If,
spot in the
if there's
rotation.
depth issues at tight end, they're not like, hey man,
Right,
we
right.
we could move him there as a blocker. Like
Yeah.
I could see that, but like I said, it'd be more of that Joe Alt role from 2 years ago than it would
Mhm.
be, or from 2021 than it would be, him being a permanent tight end.
Yeah.
That's not going to be happening.
For sure. But you can see some of the tools. You can see the athleticism. He has good feet. Right there, he's pulling out, he's lead blocking on a run play, deletes the kid into the end zone. And you see some of the tools that I believe some of the coaching staff is going to see. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here. He has yet to take a snap in high school as a tackle. Correct. This is
Correct. I have not seen him play offensive tackle in high
okay.
school. It's
Okay.
it's it's all. And look, go ahead, keep going, Trav. Finish your
Yeah,
point.
and you see plays where he's not necessarily attached to the line of scrimmage, but he's aligned more as like the H back, but they will pull him out and use him as a lead blocker. You go back and think about what some of the things Notre Dame does schematically, where they'll pin and pull some of their tackles, they'll move out some of their tackles on counter plays. He fits schematically what Notre Dame would want to do with some of their tackles this season, down the road. Now it's just about seeing him do it as an actual offensive tackle in high school. But the tools are there. Good feet, not tight hipped. Said a lot of the similar things about Grayson McHugh because of his background playing a little bit of tight end as well. An athletic kid, somebody that is going to be somewhat of a project when he gets on campus. But you like the baseline of where he's going to be starting from.
Yeah, and like I like I like the size, I like the athleticism. There's a lot of potential there. There's some of the question marks of hey, why does he ranked as a 3-star recruit? Is it just because you've never seen him play tackle? No, not really, because there's a lot of tight ends you can see play tackle, but you see him in space. You got to look at that not like a tight end, but you look at that like an offensive lineman, and you see that the kid moves really well. This is pretty good athleticism here. He's waiting on the ball. You see he's got pretty nimble feet, but what my concern is, it's not just about learning to play tackle. He's got to learn to play with the physicality that you need from an offensive lineman on a more consistent basis. This is against, I believe, that clip right there was against Matty Augustine's high school, I believe. But he will get after it at times, and then like that's a really good clip. Other times it's just kind of like he's a body blocker, and you don't see the same level of physicality that I want to see. Like there, it's just he's kind of placing on the guy, and then he's just way bigger than that kid. So there's a lot of things you have to learn about striking, about stepping and with power, about using his hands with force, about really driving his feet. So there's a lot of technical things that he's going to have to work on. And but like you said, the tools are there. This is not a kid you're expecting to come in and if there's an injury to your starting left tackle, he becomes a your immediate starter like Anthony Knapp or like a
Yeah.
Blake Fisher or Joe Walt. But this is a kid that you hope in time can be a pretty good player. Like this is pretty decent, but athletically, but got to work on the pad level. Like Drake Bowen, for example, is going to rock him right here. Just absolutely rock him because he doesn't understand. He's just so much bigger and more talented than the guys he's playing against. He doesn't really need to be that way. So all those things need to get worked on, and that's a big reason why he's a 3-star. But how many offensive tackles could go catch a wheel route with his hands like this, and and run over a kid and do things like that? So there's a lot of those things, Trev, that you look at and you say, hey, this kid's got legit tools. He's just a long way away from being able to show those tools on a consistent basis, but you can't deny the tools. And that's what Notre Dame saw. And if he was the only tackle that they got in this class, I'd be like, I don't know how I feel about that. But as sort of that second tackle in the class with Grayson McHugh, man, I dig it, especially when you consider the backstory of this is a kid who's going to come in and be completely bought in to what you're trying to do at Notre Dame. And that can't be dismissed as an important factor of whether or not it's going to work. Because the fear of with having 6 guys in the class is Maybe we'll keep them all here. Well, when your sixth guy is a kid like this,
Yeah.
it's going to help. It certainly helps.
I'm sure I speak for you in saying this as well, but I'm excited to see his film this upcoming season when he does start to take some snaps as a tackle to truly see what kind of foundation he's going to have. Because athletically, looks like he projects. But you guys know me, I'm a got to see it guy, and I can't wait to watch him actually be a tackle.
Well, you definitely have to see it. I mean, there's no question about it. You definitely have to see it. But you'd rather see a kid that has the potential. You want to see the athleticism do all. It's kind of like I've said, yeah, look, I don't need to see a kid actually play receiver to have an idea of whether I can turn this kid into a receiver.
Sure.
I need to see him catch the ball. I need to see how his explosiveness, to see his change of direction. What kind of hip movement does he have? I mean, like honestly, you could watch a 6'3", 195-pound kid play basketball and be like, dude, I think I could turn him into a wide receiver. Because I could see all the athleticism and the athletic tools. Now, will he pick up on the nuances of the position? That remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But you're taking a chance on a kid like this because he is what we, it's the epitome of a boomer bust prospect. If he, this is the kind of kid who could come in and never play meaningful down of football at Notre Dame. And this is the kind of kid that you're like, how did this kid grow into a 2-3 year starter at Notre Dame? You never know. There's that huge gap. But because the upside's there, I'm okay taking a chance on it because, listen, not everybody pans out. I mean, there's going to be top 100 guys that they get on the offensive line that don't pan out. And so you don't say, well, you go back and look and the kid never panned out, so you shouldn't have taken him. Well, you're going to say that about every like 5-star kid that they get or top 100 kid that they get who doesn't pan out? No, it's you're making a projection based on his potential and upside, and you coach him up and see what happens. And that's what Notre Dame did with Grayson McHugh, and that's what they're doing with Charlie Tom. Now the difference is I think Grayson McHugh has more just natural God-given ability, and we've already seen Grayson make the move to offensive line. Grayson's bigger, more athletic, more powerful, all those kind of things, but he's still a projection at for the offensive line, and that's what I want to see. So I'm good to pick up here's my thing. As long as all the other offensive linemen in the class are okay with it, then you know what? I'm okay with it. That's the only potential concern for taking a kid like him. Now, what's next? Obviously, Notre Dame is not going to be adding a 7th offensive lineman to the class. Here's an interesting thing, too. Somebody actually asked me this the other day. They said, if Grayson is this the kind of kid in an 85 scholarship era? Is this the kind of kid that is a preferred walk-on? And my answer is maybe, but I don't know if Notre Dame really wanted Charlie Tom in the 85 scholarship era, the chances of them getting him to turn down scholarships from Penn State, Boston College, Nebraska, and Syracuse, Virginia Tech to go pay $70,000 a year to go to Notre Dame. I don't know that would have been a good option. I mean, we've seen it happen before. Luke Talich did that a couple of years ago. I mean, he had legit offers from Utah and Washington State, but that'd have been a tough one because he did have a good relationship with Phil Troutwine at Penn State, who did a nice job recruiting him from what I've been told. And now it's a situation where Notre Dame steps in and gets it done. What's next for Notre Dame in the 2024 class or 26 class is nothing. They're done. It's kind of now time to put the full attention on keeping this class together, but the attention now goes on, the 2027 class. So we have just had all types of weather issues this week. So Trevor's power's out, so he's out for now. So I'm gonna keep rolling right now with this. But that's kind of where they're at. It's just look now. It's let's set your board for 2027. Let's see who your top guys are in 2027. Cameron Wagner's going to be one. Hopefully Kennedy Brown will be one down in Texas. So hopefully they have an idea of who their top guys are, and it's time to go after them and see if you can get them into class. So that's where they're at. As far as what's next in the class as a whole, the next player that has a commitment date set that I'm aware of. So I'm trying to think of the positions: running back, wide receiver. They're done at running back, wide receiver, tight end, D line, secondary. The next player with a known commitment date is Caden Finley on July 4th. Then you'll have Devin Fitzgerald on July 5th. You may have somebody go within that next day or so. July 11th, Nick Reddish is going to make his decision known between Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. Devin Fitzgerald's between Clemson, Notre Dame, and Stanford. Caden Finley, it's basically Notre Dame and Texas. And then Braden Robinson is on the July 20th. We'll see if he sticks to that. But it'll be Notre Dame, Miami, Arizona. And then Evan Jacobson's still out there, and Ian Premer is still out there. I don't believe either one of them have dates set for when they're going to make their decision. So we're going to see. But the board is really small. I think there's, 2 tight ends. You've got Elijah Golden doesn't have a date set yet. So you have him at D tackle. You've got Nick Reddish, and you've got the 3 receivers. So there's 7 guys left on the board. I think Notre Dame would most likely take all of them if they wanted to come. And, if you want to get my thoughts on how I feel about those guys, you can go check the board, my latest intel piece I put up. I'm thinking about doing something later this week after I get a little bit more intel of just sort of like my feeling where I think things are leaning and have that. So, but obviously Charlie Tom is a really nice pickup for Notre Dame, and yet another player, 21st player to commit to Notre Dame in this class. It's been a wild run. And you think about the ups and downs of where we've been as a fan base, kind of reacting to who they're getting or when they're not getting guys and things like that. So it's been a wild ride. It's been a wild ride. So that's going to do it for the Charlie Tom breakdown. We are going to dive into Bice a Hole next. But before we do, folks, do me a favor. You see that like button down there? It would really help us if you could do that. But here's another thing I'm going to ask you guys to do. And even if you don't necessarily listen to the podcast, so in the description box below, you will see, and if you are a podcast listener, definitely do this for us. We'd greatly appreciate it. But you'll see a link to our podcast platform. And we have one on, obviously Apple, whether you're listening on Google, whether you're listening on Spotify, wherever you listen to the podcast. What you can do to help us, and this is free, all it costs you is time, is go to the podcast platform or any podcast platform. And if you really want to help us out, go to all the podcast platforms where they have Irish Breakdown and give us a 5-star review. Give us a 5-star rating and a review. Let people know why you like our show, why you listen to our show. It definitely helps us out a ton and really helps us to kind of get ourselves in front of more and more audience, just that algorithm, whatever it means and however they do it, the like button and the 5-star reviews on the podcast platforms tells the algorithm, say, promote this show more. And we would greatly appreciate that. So, every now and then I like to remind you guys of ways that you can help us. Obviously, being a member of the Irish Breakdown Premium Board is a great way to help us financially. Boards at irishbreakdown.com. We always appreciate super chats, but there's a lot of things you guys can do to help us that just require your time, listening to the show, watching the show, but then also making sure you're hitting the like button on all our shows and then giving us that 5-star review on the podcast platform is something that we really, really, really appreciate and helps us a bunch. And then, of course, tell all your friends and family that are Notre Dame fans about what we're doing at Irish Breakdown. And you can tell them to sign up at boards at irishbreakdown.com. All right, everybody. It is time now for the buy, sell, hold segment. And then you guys know the drill. The buy, sell, hold is submitted. Salty Virginia Peanuts, who is a mod on the board, will start a thread usually Monday or Tuesday. And you get to post your buy, sell, hold submissions in there. We only take submissions from people who are on the message board unless you want to give a super chat. But I've always said, unless you're already a member, if I'd rather you take that super chat amount and put that on to signing up for the message board, and then you can do it every week for however many weeks you want to do it. But we only do submissions from the premium message board. This is something that we do as a thank you to those on the premium message board. If you do want to get something in, you can throw a super chat in, and we will get to that as well. But that is where we're at. So we are going to get started on that. A lot of really good submissions today. and I'm ready to get through them. I think you guys did yet again did a great job of getting the submissions in, so we appreciate that. And of course, Salty's little reward is he always gets the first one, and we appreciate that, Salty. So here we go. Buy, sell, hold. As far as recruiting a class that fills needs with elite prospects goes, Notre Dame is very close to recruiting the top class in the nation, regardless of mindless simplicities such as simply tallying star rankings, regardless of fit and need. That is definitely a buy, Salty. I mean, you said the top class. Have the top class, what I think you need is you need Caden Finley. I would like to get maybe all three of the receivers left on the board. So Ian Premer, Caden Finley, Devin Fitzgerald, Braden Robinson. I think you need Ian Premer in the class. He's a legit top 100 guy. Like some people have him as a top 50 guy. He's that high-level player that you need. You need Elijah Golden in a big way. I think Nick Reddish adds something to the class. But then beyond that, I do think you need some position players and some of the players in the class to show improvement as seniors. I do think you need some of the high upside linemen to make jumps as seniors. I think you need to see some, a guy like Dylan Faison go out and have a bigger year, and a guy like Chaz Smith, who is, from what I've been told, doing a great job at the Rivals Elite Camp. And of course, Joey O'Brien's killing the Rivals Elite Camp. But, Chaz Smith to go up in rankings, Aiden Pouncey to have a big senior year, and not just go up in rankings, but also start to tap into their potential more. I mean, Chaz Smith is a guy that I have as a borderline top 150 recruit right now, but the upside is really high. Does he start to tap into that more to where I'm more confident in him being that player? Same with Preston Frizzell. So, I mean, the chat Justin Sniper, ND Sniper just brought up. He's another guy that I want to see him have another jump as a senior. And so when those guys have that kind of success and get closer to their upside, then I don't have to rank the class as much on projection, but more on where they are now. And so I think that'll help as well, because it's a really, really good class. Right now, it is a top 5 class right now. And if they finish with just 80% of the guys on the board, it should stay as a top 5 class. You got to hit the inside straight to be number 1, including having some guys move up. So yes. And that's kind of it. And Sly Fox, yes, Notre Dame did cancel the visit, hence Kari Adams and Joey O'Brien. So let that clown say whatever he wants to say. Don't worry about it. When you've got to lie to brag about your team, your team's getting their butts kicked. So don't let that guy get to you. So that's it from Salty Virginia Peanuts. Good way to start, Salty. Appreciate that. Now, next up is Irish English. What a buy, so hold. Notre Dame successfully converted it on 4th down 22 times last year, which was the highest since at least 2016. If we could manipulate only one statistic for the 2025 season, we should hope for that number being lower. I'm going to sell that. And I get a sense of why you're coming at it with that standpoint, because you're thinking, well, you won't need to go on 4th down as much. But I disagree, because I like the 4th down aggressiveness. But if you go for it more next season, what that means is that they have even more confidence on their team to go for it on 4th down. It also means that they're in more field position situations to go for it. So, if you're 4th down and 2 at your own 25, you may not want to go for it. But if you're in 4th and 2 at your own at their 25, you may go for it if you don't want to kick a field goal, or if you're at their 40 and you're in a better position. So I think it actually speaks volumes. It shows this is kind of part of the mindset change we need to have. Also, Irish English, and this includes me, because I haven't always felt that way. I feel that way more so now than I did before. But I look at it like this and say, in this era where I'm coming to understand the benefits of, this is one area where I think analytics has helped, where you look at the percentage of going for it on 4th down and what it means for your team compared to what you give up to the other team, all those type of things. I like being more aggressive in 4th down situations. Now, you got to be smart about, hey, I don't want to be going for a lot of 4th and 7s. unless you're in good. Like, for example, the play that Notre Dame ran against Georgia. I'm not, you're not doing that if it's 4th and 9, because even if they jump off sides, it's now 4th and 4. You've still got to punt. You're doing that because it's less than 4th and 5, or it's 4th and 5 or less. And so there's all those type of things that kind of get into it that say, I like the aggressiveness there. And if you're going for it more, it means there's more confidence in it. It means you're in better field position situations to take more chances. And so I think that's why I kind of like it. And it also would mean, and this is another good point, Justin Sniper's on fire today, but it also means that you have a lot of confidence in the Chris Ash defense, just like you had in the Al Golden defense. You look at the 2 4th downs, it was third quarter, coming out third quarter. Notre Dame went for it on 4th down twice in the same drive. One of them backed up pretty far. The other was near midfield. Why? Because they had a lot of confidence that if they get stopped, their defense is at least going to hold Texas A&M to a field goal, if not completely stop them, period. And so that's a factor as well. So all those things go into why you go for it on 4th down that would lead to a lot of confidence in your football team that is earned throughout the season. So that's why I will actually sell the idea that you would like, if you could change one statistic, that you'd like to be less than that. But if you could manipulate one statistic, this would not be the one I would manipulate. I would manipulate other things. I'd manipulate a better 3rd down percentage. I'd manipulate a better red zone touchdown percentage. I'd manipulate, more yards per pass attempt. I'd manipulate, more yards per game. There'd be a lot of things I'd manipulate before I would worry about changing that if I could only change one statistic. More from Irish English. Irish English says the interception leader number for Notre Dame's 2025 season should be 5.5. I'm good with that. I'm good with that. And as for a bonus, would you go over or under? I'm going to go over. Now, that is partly the Xavier Watts effect, because Xavier Watts is he did that each of the last 2 years. I mean, Xavier had 6 interceptions this year. He had 7 the year before that. But then you had Benjamin Morrison in 2022 that had 6. 2021, you only had your leader was 3. You had 2 guys with 3. But you had 15. You had more interceptions in 2021 than you did in 2022. It's just that 60% of the interceptions were made by one guy in 2022. 2020, you only had 7 interceptions, but 2019, you only had 4. Only 4 in 2018. So like this whole thing of 6 is a relatively number, but I think it's the nature of the defense that I would say that I'm gonna buy that as the reality. So when you look at just what I said before that Chris Ash is going to do different things, but I don't think Notre Dame is going to go to be like this kind of passive bend but don't break, not really aggressive, keep everything in front of you type of defense. I just don't know that makes a lot of sense. And when you look, for example, at Chris Ash's defense at Ohio State in 2014, the year they won the national championship, they had 25 interceptions that season. Notre Dame this past year only had 19, and they played 15 games that season. So I think this is a defense that wants to be aggressive and wants to attack and wants to get after it and force a lot of turnovers. And I think that you're going to see that number still go up. So who is it going to be is probably a bigger question. Is it going to be Christian Gray? Is it going to be, is it going to be a Don Schuler? Is it going to be Luke Talich or one of the other safeties? Is it going to be Devontae Smith as the nickel? Unlikely. Is it Leonard Moore? My bet would be on one of the safeties, but if not one of the safeties, my next best bet would be Christian Gray, because geez, if Christian Gray just caught the passes that hit him in the hands last year, he's got 6 interceptions. And Christian has much better hands than what he showed last season, as you've seen from the times that he's made some really acrobatic and really impressive interceptions. So that's why I would go with him on that one. Buy, sell, hold. If you knew Notre Dame was going to go 11-1, but could manipulate which game they lost, Pitt would be the game of choice. That would definitely not be the game of choice. For number one, if I pick that one, my buddy Jason might never speak to me again, because he lives in Pittsburgh, and it would be absolutely torture for him if Notre Dame went through a great season and their only loss was to Pitt. It would just, I don't know that I could still be friends with him if I made that prediction but I don't want it to be that one. I don't want it to be either of the SEC games. I don't want it to be Miami. I mean, honestly, I don't know what game I would, but honestly, could pick for that. That's a tough, because I don't want it to be BC for a million reasons. I don't want it to be Navy. I don't want to be Syracuse. I honestly, I can't even, like, Irish. I can't even say the words. Like, I can't even say the words of who I would want it to who I would want it to be. I don't know, Boise, NC State. Like, NC State probably would be my pick, because you then get maybe a really ticked off Notre Dame team going into USC. Could you imagine Notre Dame going into the USC game already mad about what USC is saying and doing, but then also mad because they lost the week before? Remember the energy that they took into the USC game after they lost to Louisville in 2023? Do you remember the energy Notre Dame took into the Purdue game last year when they lost to Northern Illinois? Could you imagine if Notre Dame had that energy going into the USC game this year? Like, it would suck to have a loss. But, oh, man, that would be a that I would definitely want to see the USC game. I would very much look forward to watching the USC game if I could do that. But I'm definitely selling Pitt. That would be one of my bottom answers, like last options, for a lot of reasons, not including that I lived in Pittsburgh and Pitt fans kind of annoyed me, and I'm not a big fan of Pat Narduzzi and just this constant whining about Notre Dame. So no, I can't go there on that one. Irish English, 4th of July dessert, and I got to buy one, sell one, hold one. I got to start, bench, or cut. So he says, well, actually, no, so Irish English, you're providing the list, and I got to buy, sell, or hold your list. Is that correct? So if I'm correct on this, so he starts pie, he benches cobbler, and he cuts cake. I would buy that list. Cake doesn't really strike me as a 4th of July meal. Pie is an easy one, and especially like in my life, I grew up, my grandmother was one of the best pie bakers in my life. I mean, we did when I was a youth pastor at the church she went to, we did a bake sale, and my grandma made like 8 pies, and I think 6 of those 8 pies were our highest sellers, including I was also working at Texas Roadhouse as a server at nights, and I got a New York strawberry cheesecake donated from my boss at Red Lobster or Texas Roadhouse to sell. That didn't make as much as a lot of my grandma's pies, because people knew about my grandma's pies, and it's one of those things I'll miss now that she's not with us anymore. But so yeah, pie is very much a 4th of July staple, right? I mean, I know cobbler's not pie, but I kind of view it as a different type of pie. Like, my wife will joke whenever we've baked pies for 4th of July, and she'll put it into a bowl and she'll like, look, it's now cobbler. It's kind of jokingly, but I get that they're not the same thing, but they're kind of the same thing. Like there's similarities between the two things. And so they both have very much a 4th of July feel, but pie is better. Cake is definitely not a 4th of July thing. So I'm gonna go with you on that one. I'll buy this list. This is a very good list. Black Irish 864 buy so hold. Notre Dame will have 1,000-yard rusher and 1,000-yard receiver before the last home game. So Christopher, if I'm gonna sell this, and the veracity with which I sell it is going to depend on whether or not you're referring to, because here's the thing, Chris, you could be talking about a Stanford game or the Syracuse game. If you're talking about that, then it's definitely a sell. But if you're viewing the last home game as a playoff game, then I would be more willing to buy that. But I'm still not sure there's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver. I think Malachi Fields could do it. I think Jaden Greathouse could do it in that order, but I'm still going to sell that. But I also think there's a chance that Notre Dame won't have a home game after Syracuse, because now that they can get a bye, there's a chance Notre Dame gets a bye, and their last home game is Syracuse. So I'm gonna sell that one for that reason. All right, let's get to J.W. Smaug. By so hold, whoever our QB is, their inexperience will cost us a game this year. That's a good – I'm going to say sell because I think if Notre Dame loses a game this year, it won't be because of the quarterback's inexperience. It'll be something else that kind of creeps up. It's the defense doesn't play well. The offensive line struggles. The receivers are not catching passes. The quarterback will be a reason for the loss, but we won't look back at the loss and be like, man, if only he had more experience. I think it'll be sort of one of those team losses like they've had in recent years where you talk about the Marshall game was a team loss. Yeah, the defense did this, but the defense also gave up a 3rd and 9 conversion inside their own, the Marshall 20, where you make a stop there, you're punting and you're forcing a punt and you're getting the ball back in your midfield. They give up that long drive. Everybody played a role in that loss. Everybody played a role in the Stanford loss. Everybody played a role in the Clemson loss. Everybody played a role in the Louisville loss. It's not one of those games like, man, and Sam Hartman's the reason they lost to Louisville. No, that was not it. Yeah, Tyler Buckner's the reason they lost to Marshall. No, that's not it. He was a reason, but he wasn't the reason. So I'm going to sell that. I think it'd be more of like a team type loss, because that's the trend we've seen from Notre Dame in recent years. Next one from J.W. Smaug. Notre Dame will have a better passing attack this year than any time in the past decade. Well, I guess it depends on what you define as better. If by better you're talking about it from a yard standpoint, 2021 they averaged 282 yards passing a game. I don't know that would be doable in this team. 200. Just to give you some idea, 282.5 yards per game. If Notre Dame played 16 games with that, that's over 4,500 passing yards. If Notre Dame only plays 15 games, let's say they get a bye, and they play 15 games, that's over 4,200 yards. That's a big jump from last year. I mean, that's a over 1,000-yard jump from last year. I think the pass game is going to be better, but not that kind of better. If you're talking about yards per pass attempt, I expect it to be better than what they were in 2021. They were only 8.1, but the 9.1 from 2023 is going to be really difficult to beat. I think where I could accept this as a buy is if you just mean overall effectiveness. And from an overall effectiveness standpoint, I do think that this has a chance to be their best pass attack of the last decade, because the problem with the 2023 pass attack is it looked great some weeks. And the reason they were at 9.1 yards per pass attempt is because they had a lot of games where they were way over against bad teams. Over 10 against Navy, over 11 against Tennessee State, over 11 against NC State. That was actually a good team. Over 12 against Central Michigan, 11.9 against Pitt, 12.2 against Oregon State, 9.2 against Stanford, 9.2 against Wake Forest. Not very good teams. Ohio State, 7.0. Duke, 7.2. Louisville, 6.7. USC, 6.3. Clemson, 4.9. So you saw this just elite level pass attack against the bad teams, but then they just struggled mightily against the good teams. That's not a great pass attack. And so Notre Dame could average 8.7 yards per attempt next year and be better than that pass attack if they're performing also well in the games. I want consistency. I want steadiness. Whether you throw for 195 yards and the quarterback goes 12 of 17, no picks and 2 touchdowns, and you run the ball, or the quarterback goes 31 of 44 for 360 yards, and they, all those type of things. And so you look at it all, and if it's an overall effectiveness, then I could buy it. And it's not just because of the quarterback. That's a role, but you expect to have one of your better offensive lines. You expect to have one of your best receiving cores of the last decade, not the best, but like one of the best. It could have a chance to be the best. You've got a very good tight end. You got really good pass catchers. You look at different years, 2023, the pass catchers were good, but not great. You had trouble with the offensive line at times. 2021, your offensive line was a hot mess. That was a major problem that year. You couldn't run the ball great. You had trouble protecting the quarterback at times. 2018 was a pretty darn good pass attack once Ian Book stepped into the lineup, but then they couldn't do anything against Clemson. So those are the things I look at. If I can get consistency and then have high efficiency numbers, so an 8, 7 or plus yards per attempt, an over 150, passer rating, and then play good football in some of the better games, that will allow me to feel like this could be the best pass attack. Domer Grizz, Notre Dame's 2025 linebackers could be as dynamic as Georgia's were in 2027. That is a really good question. So obviously in 2027, that's the group you had Roquan Smith. 2017, you had Roquan Smith. You had Lorenzo Carter, who was more of a defensive end than he was a linebacker. Same thing with DeAndre Walker. You had Natrez Patrick, Reggie Carter. Like, could anybody be as individually good as Roquan Smith? I don't think so. He was really, really good. As a unit, could they be better than Georgia in 2017? Possible. It's going to require Kingston to have a breakout season, and it's going to require Jaden Osbury to continue to improve as well as Drake Bowen getting up to that point. So if that happens, then I think they have a shot to do that. Next one, Notre Dame's true reserves. So not regular rotation 1B type guys, but the ones who are deeper on the depth chart and probably won't see the field until much up by 30 would win 3+ games this year by themselves. I'll buy that. 6+ games, that I don't buy, because we're talking like third string now. That I can't buy. All right, so let's get to the next buy so hold. B Jammin 41. When Notre Dame wins it all, and I love the start of this. You're starting off very well here. B Jammin 41. When Notre Dame wins it all in 2025, they will be the most hated program in college football. Most hated program. Because like the reason that I am having a hard time with this one, B Jammin, is because I don't know that hate and jealousy are the same thing. Envy can lead to hate, but envy doesn't automatically mean there is hate. And you can have hate without envy as well. So, man, I'm going to sell this. I think they become the team that people are the most envious of. There's going to be a lot of jealousy, a lot of complaining from a lot of fan bases about, oh, it's not fair that they do this. It's not fair that they do that. I don't know about hated, though. I'll say this. They'll become the most hated program in the South for sure. Rest of the country, I don't know if they'll be hated as much as there'll be a lot of envy amongst fan bases. So I'll kind of buy it, but kind of not. I'm kind of cheating a little bit there because I just don't know how much. I think a lot of it will be envy more so than pure hate. Now, the envy will manifest with a lot of immature people on social media as hate. And I know one particular, guy that talks LSU football that is going to lose his mind if Notre Dame wins a title, and that might even be more fun to watch than just watching, winning it, or more fun to happen, more even just as much as winning it. Maybe it's just seeing some of that kind of nonsense. So yeah, we'll see. That's a good one. Buy so hold. CJ Carr will make a preseason All-American team in 2026, not first team. Ooh. I'm gonna buy that. I'm actually gonna buy that because I'm trying to think of like all the guys coming back, and when you look at sort of the I'm trying to find like my top 10 list from this year, but there's a decent number of the guys in my top 10 list this year that are going to be gone and won't be back in the future. So like when you look at see if I can pull this up here real quick. So like my top 10 list, I had, so Cade Klubnik is gone, but you're going to have Lenore Sellers potentially coming back, Arch Manning potentially coming back, Drew Aller's gone, maybe Sam Levitt's coming back. I think he should come back. You have Josh Hoover will probably be gone. I think John Mateer's done. Haynes King is done. Garrett Nussmeier's done. Blake Horvath is done. But then if you look at like Trevor's list, for example, there's more guys from his list coming back. So, you're going to have Kevin Jennings comes back, DJ Lagway comes back, Dylan Raiola comes back. You're going to have on top of the guys you said. So it'll be tough, but I think he's going to have a really good year. I do. And so I could see that. I'm going to buy it as a legitimate possibility, not a guarantee, but it's not an outrageous thing to suggest about him possibly being a preseason first-team All-American, since you are saying that it doesn't have to just be first team. If you're going to say first team, I'd be like, no, I think Arch Manning's going to be first-team All-American next year, preseason All-American next year, because I don't think Arch is a one-and-done player. I think the Mannings are a different breed of folks, and I think they think more big picture. Arch doesn't need to go pro to get money. I think it's about development, and as long as they feel he's being developed at Texas, I think they're going to want that second year as a starter for Arch. And so I think he'll come back and most likely be that guy. You're going to have Lenore Sellers coming back. If DJ Lagway stays healthy, Dylan Raiola, Bryce Underwood, there's going to be a lot of talented quarterbacks. So next year's quarterback year is going to be so fun to watch, even more so than this year. So, but I buy it as a possibility. CJ will be in that conversation. B. Jamin says Notre Dame's second team could go 9-3 or 10-2 in 2025. So let's just say now we're going to take any non-starter. So let's go Kenny Minchie at quarterback, Jadarian Price at running back, receiving core of Will Pauling, KK Smith, and Micah Gilbert. Tight end, Kevin Bauman and Jack Larson as your two tight ends. Your offensive line is Will Black, Sullivan Absher, Joe Otting, Chris Tarrick, and Gerby Lambert. It's pretty good. Your defensive line is, say, Bryce Young or Josh Burnham, and then Junior Tuilamaka or Boubacar Traore. Your D tackles are Jared Dawson and Donovan Heinisch. Your linebackers are, let's just say it's Kingston Viliama Asa and Jaden Alsbury. Your nickel is either Ben Minnick or Dallas Golden. Your corners are Carson Hobbs and either Cree Thomas or Dallas Golden or Mark Zachary. Your safeties are Jadon Blair or Bronte Johnson or Luke Talich, two of those three guys. That's a pretty good team. Is it 9-3 good enough? Possibly. 10-2 good enough? That's a different ask. That's a different ask. But it's not insane to think that. But I'd sell 10-2. I'll buy 9-1 because it's June and I'm in a good mood. But I'm gonna go. But that is a bit of a tough ask for backups. But if they had the whole offseason to prepare for it, then it's possible. It's certainly possible. That'll be that'd be tough, but it's doable, and it speaks to the talent of the team. But 10-2, no. 9-3 possible, so I'll buy it because it's possible. I think 8-4 is more likely. That means like the whole starting lineup is gone. Notre Dame is still going to a bowl game. No question about it. Bites a hold from B. Jam, and assuming Notre Dame lands Caden Finley, Joey O'Brien would be the second best receiver in this class if he was only a wide receiver recruit. I'd have to think more about that. I'd probably buy it, but I think that diminishes how good I think Bubba Frazier is and can be. I really like Bubba Frazier. I was watching his film again a couple nights ago. I like to get refreshers on kids. You haven't watched a kid in a while. You can kind of forget how good a kid is, or sometimes a guy can get better in your mind than he was because you start thinking of all the positives as you talk more about him, but you don't actually like evaluate him and you don't remember some of the critiques and things. And I watched Bubba Frazier the other day, and that kid is a really good football player. So I'll buy it, but I'm not buying it with a lot of great force because I think Joey's a very good wide receiver, but I think Bubba could be good to go. Yeah, I think Bubba's pretty good to go. Buy, sell, hold from D. Troll Hunter. We should expect Notre Dame to try and play mostly man coverage still week 1. That's a good question. I think if I define mostly, I think it's more than 50%. And I do think that Notre Dame will be at over 50% in man coverage in week 1. That's a good question, D. Troll Hunter. But I don't think they're going to go to this team, at least I hope that they don't, that is just 25% man and playing zone most of the game. I don't think that's going to be who they are. I just don't think you're using your talent effectively in that instance. Buy, sell, hold from D. Troll Hunter. Quarterback pressure will be a key part of Notre Dame's game versus A&M. Reed really struggled under pressure last season. Well, number one, I do expect him to get better this year against pressure because he'll have more experience. But I think that's always going to be a little bit of an issue for Marcel Reed. Is he's not the biggest quarterback in the world, and I don't know that he's a guy that is maybe as natural as some other players are in the pocket. So I think it's going to cause him to create some mistakes and rush some throws and get out of the pocket sooner and things like that. So yeah, I will buy that. That'll be a big part of that game. Definitely buy that'll be a big part of the game. Welcome back, Trevor.
Man, that was
2 days
weird.
in a row. 2 days in a row it's happened to us. Happened to me and Vince yesterday, now you today.
Our whole complex lost power, and it's sunny outside. And I ran into the property manager, and he was like, yeah, hopefully construction didn't knock into anything. But came back on about 5 minutes ago. I was just waiting for the internet to boot up. So thank goodness.
There we go. Well, we're ready to get back to it, Trev. We've missed having you. Ready to rock and roll.
Let's do it. Buy, sell, hold from D-Troll Hunter. Utah's offensive line talent makes them a Big 12 dark horse this season. Even though they have the 4th best odds to win it, I feel like they are not being taken seriously as a contender.
I'll buy that. I think it goes beyond that. I think it's, obviously their offensive line talent's part of it. But I'll tell you, it just depends on here's the thing. So let me just pull up something here real quick, because it just depends on what they try to do with the offense. Now, they hired Jason Beck as their offensive coordinator, and he was at New Mexico the year before. And if you go back and look at what New Mexico did, he brought his quarterback with him. We've talked about it in this offseason. And they had a kid last year at quarterback named Devin Dampier. And you look at him as a passer, 57.9 complete. But Trev, if this is all I said about Utah, okay, Trev, Utah starting quarterback, completed 57.9% of his passes. He's 5'10", completed 57.9% of his passes. He threw for 2,768 yards his first year as a starter, and had 7.1 yards per attempt. He had 12 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. Would you be all that fired up about him? No, but if I also added, and by the way, I'm sorry, Trev, I forgot to give you this little bit of context. He also rushed for 1,166 yards, averaged 7.5 yards per rush, and scored 19 rushing touchdowns. Would that change your stance a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. Right. I mean, against Arizona last year, he passed for 260 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Also ran for 130 yards, 8.7 per carry, 2 touchdowns, and a 61-39 loss to Auburn. In a game against Auburn last year, he passed for 291 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. And then he rushed for 31 yards, 6.2 per carry. So, I mean, he's got Power 5 experience. Against Washington State last year in a duel against John Mateer. I actually want to bring up that whole box score because that was I remember kind of watching some highlights of that game, but he had a big game there. New Mexico beat Washington State 38-35 in that game. Devin Dampier scored the game-winning touchdown with 21 seconds left. So, Washington State was up 21-7 early. They were up 28-14 at halftime. New Mexico came back and it would have had a 31-28 lead Washington State scored with 3:12 left. John Mateer threw a 37-yard touchdown pass, and then Dampier led him on about a 3-minute drive, and he scores from 1 yard out to win the game. And in that game, John Mateer, who's everybody's favorite quarterback, and I transfer quarterback, and I get it, passed for 375 yards and 4 touchdowns, also rushed for 65 yards and a touchdown. So that's outstanding production against New Mexico. So 440 yards and 5 touchdowns. Devin Dampier, however, passed for 174 yards and a touchdown, went 11-25, won't blow you away, right? But he also rushed for 193 yards. He had 367 yards and 4 touchdowns of his own as a year one starter against Washington State John Mateer, and his team won the game. But nobody's talking about him because he's not a sexy passer. So the question is, will Kyle Whittingham allow the new OC to run the offense his way, or is he going to try to turn the kid into more of a traditional quarterback, which means they're not going to be successful? I got to think Kyle Whittingham hasn't had all the success he's had over the years by being a guy that's that way. I have to think he's bringing this guy in and his quarterback saying, you're going to run the offense. And I think it makes a lot of sense for Utah to go that direction because drop back passing quarterbacks are going to start getting more and more and more expensive. But you can go find a 5'10" kid that nobody heard of coming out of high school. Some kid from Phoenix, Arizona, that was, I'm going to look up his recruiting ranking. I'm pretty sure it wasn't that great because he went to New Mexico out of high school, 3-star across the board. No big offers. Arizona, New Mexico, looks like the only 2 power, teams that offered him. Goes to New Mexico. You can find those guys a lot easier than I'm going to be able to find a 6'3", 215-pound, really nasty drop back quarterback. And so you got to make some of those calculations to say, hey, I think this is the way we need to go. More system driven. So if he allows them to do that, then I do think that there's a chance that they could get to that point in time. He's going to have some new receivers, obviously, to throw to. The offensive line, you have Caleb Lomu, who's a very highly ranked player coming back. Spencer Fano at right tackle. Those are your 2 tackles. That's going to be one of your better tackle tandems in the country this year, Trev. The question for me, though, is not so much about the offense. I thought they took a pretty big step back last year on defense, and that's something that I'm a little bit more concerned about, more so than I am offense. I think Utah's defense has got to get back on track, but I really do kind of view part of that is just a bit of an anomaly season. And you look at them down the stretch, Trev, they give up 31 to Iowa State, 49 to Colorado. They give up 27 to Arizona State. Like, they weren't bad, but they weren't, to me, as good as they normally are. I think it's a bit of an anomaly year, but that unit's got to also get back on track. But I do think Utah goes in this season as one of the 5 teams that I have as a legitimate title contender. So you want to call them a dark horse. Like if Detroit Hunter, if you'd have said they're going to win the Big 12, I'd have been like, I don't know about that. But as a dark horse, absolutely, I think they're a dark horse. But I think I would go, it's more than just the offensive line. It's the offensive line with that quarterback. It's going to be fun to watch that team play this year.
Yeah, that's a really good point about their quarterback. I mean, look, to put some numbers behind what you're talking about at the offensive line, they returned 3,369 snaps from 2024 and 109 career starts combined amongst all 5 guys. I mean, all 5 of their offensive linemen started games last year, with both of their tackles starting 12. Their center, Jared Kump, started 12. Their left guard started 10 games but played in 11. Their right guard, Michael Makafisi, I'm sorry if I butchered that name, had 7 starts to himself. So I agree. And, I took a look at their schedule as well, and I wish I could say they have a favorable schedule, but like we've alluded to so many times this offseason, I don't know what the Big 12 is going to look like. I don't know what dictates a favorable schedule, what doesn't. You go and you look, I mean, home against Colorado, maybe they hold serve at home, but I don't know what this Colorado team is going to be this season. They're on the road against BYU. Luckily, some of their tougher-looking opponents, they do get at home. They get Kansas State at home. They get Arizona State at home. They get Texas Tech at home. So potentially, but I do buy that they are a dark horse. I get that completely. And buy, sell, hold. You get this one. We're buying one. We're holding one, and we're going to sell one of these quarterbacks going into 25 to be Notre Dame's quarterback. So Carson Beck, Josh Hoover, Garrett Nussmeier.
That's an interesting one. I would buy Josh Hoover. I would hold Garrett Nussmeier, and I'd sell Carson Beck. The biggest reason I'd sell Carson Beck is his injury. I've said this. I've been consistent. I don't know that I trust his health. I also don't know if he's kind of got that that kind of dog in him that I really want to go compete for a championship. I just don't think he has that in him. Garrett Nussmeier is a very talented player, and I like he's the most talented of the guys on this list, in my opinion, is just as a thrower. But he's very careless with the football, especially in some big games, and that concerns me. Josh Hoover is a guy that's just he is Sam Hartman, in my opinion. I mean that's what he is. He's a smart quarterback. He's going to get the ball where it needs to get to, and you know, look, Sam Hartman gets a lot of crap from Notre Dame fans, but I think part of that was he played in an offensive line that was wildly inconsistent, especially right up the middle, which for a 6-foot quarterback is terrible.
Yeah,
to have that, because you see these big quarterbacks get pressure up the middle and they just kind of throw over it. 6-foot quarterback, a 6'1" defensive lineman gets through and goes like this, and you're like, you can't throw over him. You're 6 feet tall,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the interior pressure would just consistently. I mean, there were times against Duke, Trev, and against Louisville where Sam's getting to the top of his shotgun drop and there's guys on him. And you're just like, come on, dude. This is ridiculous. And so it's a very different system. I think this offensive line is going to be a lot better this year. I think he's got great weapons around. He'd have great weapons around him. So I'd probably go Josh Hoover in that one. But the other part is the reason that Garrett Nussmeier would be somewhat attractive to me is because the one thing he has in there that the others don't is he would know Mike Denbrock's system. And that's what, you know, like the raw talent and that kind of lead me to thinking, gee, I wonder if this might not be the good option, but I'd probably go towards Josh Hoover. But if you told me, Brian, I looked into the future and I saw that Garrett Nussmeier was a better decision maker in big games, I'd say, you know what, I'd go with Garrett Nussmeier in that instance. But that would be my big concern there.
Yeah, this one's tough. Of these three, I'd probably buy Garrett Nussmeier. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what he does in an offense that actually has a run game. You know, he didn't have that last season at LSU, and I like the receiving core around what Notre Dame's quarterback is actually going to have this season. So I'd probably buy Garrett Nussmeier. Of these three, because I know Nuss and Hoover aren't injured, so I'd probably sell Carson Beck, hold Josh Hoover. You know, I mean, if I had like a crystal ball to look into the future and know that Carson Beck was going to, like, the injury wasn't going to affect him that much, that would probably change my decision a little bit. But of these three, I'd probably go, buy Garrett Nussmeier, hold Josh Hoover, sell Carson Beck. That's probably what I would do.
By the way, Carson Beck's injury was nothing like CJ Carr's injury. Nothing like it. CJ Carr was good to go like in a month. Like this guy, he needed surgery, like a significant surgery on his elbow. So no, they're not the same thing. They're not the same thing. You there?
Yep. Yep. I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
That was weird.
Yeah. What happened?
Yep, my internet glitched and then the screen reset. I thought you guys lost power.
No, not.
Lordy.
We didn't lose power again.
That's
we got Vince in the bullpen waiting to come into the show in case one of us goes. So we appreciate him doing that. But like
that's why I said, I was
he's just hanging out in the bottom, waiting on one of us to get kicked out of here again. The minute he sees me like this for like more than 5 seconds, he's jumping in there.
Oh,
you know, so
goodness.
Yeah, no.
All righty. Well, sorry about that. Back on track. Here we go. Buy, sell, hold from Lucky Duck 512. The 2026 class will have the biggest impact on perception of how well Notre Dame is recruiting in the national media outside of Irish Breakdown.
Oh, I think that's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And like this class is going to get the recognition that the 23 and 24 classes should have gotten. I think you're going to see, maybe not at 247, but I think at On3 Rivals, when that combination comes together with ESPN, I think you're going to see more Notre Dame players go up in the rankings after committing than down, because I think you're going to see Notre Dame players get more of a fair shake with some. I think you may see them get kind of bumped because they committed to Notre Dame in certain instances at those outlets, more so than we've seen in the past. And definitely when you get into sort of the like some of the skill positions, let's say, because of the success Notre Dame had. And then some guys are just ranked high. Like, how far can you really drop Rodney Dunham when you've got him ranked 15th? Like 247. Like, how far? Well, he's got a knee injury. You knew that when you jumped him up to 15th. He got injured as a junior. You can't use that as an excuse anymore. So, those are all things that I look at it and say, hey, this is something that is going to have to get addressed. So, yeah. So that is certainly something that I think is. I just think in part of it's they're recruiting higher quality players, but I think part of it is the North is getting more recognition from a ranking standpoint this year than in the past. You're seeing a kid from Maryland ranked in the top 50. You're seeing a kid from PA, a skilled kid from the PA ranked in the top 50. I think those things factor into it as well. So yes, I do think whether or not this class ends up being better than 23 and 24, we'll find out. But from a perception standpoint, Vince, I think this will be perceived to be a much different class than Notre Dame had in 24 and 23.
I mean, you guys are obviously way more in tune to the recruiting side of things and then the way the market kind of works and all of that kind of stuff. And so I usually defer to you on that one, but I also am not blind to the fact that it feels like every time somebody commits to Notre Dame, their recruiting rankings go down, which is just
they still might at 247.
Yeah.
But I mean, not at ES Rivals and the Rivals On3 combination.
Yeah. It's just mind boggling. But, to your point though, I feel like they are getting recognition this year. And this is from like kind of the outside looking in, you know what I mean? And just kind of following it along, listening to what you guys have to say and just listening kind of the national narrative and all those kinds of things. It feels like this 26th class is getting a lot of respect around the country. And I think if they close out how we think they could close out with, all these various dominoes that we talked about, and, if they can all fall Notre Dame's way, I mean, you can't ignore what Notre Dame is doing. Like that's how I feel where they're at. And now you also have a head coach in Marcus Freeman, who has clearly shown over his track records, like he's going to be bringing in some dudes, like it's going to happen. And now you can get on board with that. You can't ignore it, right? You can kind of ignore some of the past with Notre Dame because it'd be kind of up and down, like, that kind of a deal. And would they penalize guys for committing to Notre Dame? Yes. But the classes were still up and down. I mean, no matter who was ranking them, they were still up and down. Now I think you're getting a steady dose of this is where Marcus Freeman's bar is. You best recognize because that's where it's going to be. And now they're getting some more national recognition. That's kind of how I feel things are going as far as recruiting for Notre Dame and beyond, 26, 27, and thereafter. Also from Lucky Duck 512, Eli Raritan, buy, sell, hold. Eli Raritan breaks or ties at least one record for tight ends this year.
You look at some of those single season records, man, and you start thinking about like the years that Michael Mayer had at Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a really tough ask.
He holds all of them, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I think he holds. I don't know that. Does he hold also the yards records? Like
he holds career receiving.
I know career, but like, does he hold the single? Was his 840 also the most yards?
Single season receiving yards he holds. Single season receptions he holds. Single season touchdowns.
Because I think he tied the record in 2021 for touchdowns and then broke it in 2022. I think. That with the 9.
Okay.
But if I remember correctly, his 16 touchdowns in his last 2 years, I believe, is more than any other tight end had in their career. So at Notre Dame. So that's 71 catches for 840 yards and 9 touchdowns. That's Michael Mayer's best numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Eli gets the catches mark. I don't think it's a yards mark. The one thing I could see him doing is I could see him getting like 10 touchdowns. I could see him setting the single season touchdown record. So
Okay.
I'll buy it because like he's going to be a really good red zone weapon. We saw it against USC last year. I mean, he's a matchup nightmare in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about playing 15, 16 games. It's not even one a game. So, I mean, look, if Michael Mayer had the same touchdown rate that he had as a junior in 2022, if he played 15 games, he would have had 11 touchdowns. If he would have played, because he played 12 games that year. So if he played 16 games, he'd have 12 touchdowns. So you don't even have to have Michael Mayer's touchdown rate. And that was a team that didn't throw a ball a ton in 2022. That's the other crazy thing about it is that record was made in a season where Notre Dame didn't throw the ball very much. But I could see that in a 15, 16 game season, he gets 10 touchdown receptions. I could see that, Vince. But catches and yards, no. Because Michael Mayer was the entire pass offense in his last 2 years.
Yeah.
And he's not now. That's the difference.
Yeah, I'm in line with Brian here. Nothing more to add. I just touchdowns in a season would probably be the one.
Yeah, those other numbers are crazy.
Yeah. Buy, sell, hold from. Oh, sorry,
Vince. If you're going to hang around, you want to read them, and then we'll just kind of go down and answer them.
Sure, I'll hang around for a little bit.
The whole team today. We got to have backups just in case power goes out again.
I was kind of sitting there, and then I started going through some emails, and all of a sudden I saw Trevor's text. I was like, "Oh, here we go!"
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, Lucky Ducks 512. That's singular. Lucky Duck 512. Buy, sell, hold. One of the reasons Notre Dame will take 6 offensive linemen in 26 is the staff believes Jagasaw, Shrouth, Wagner all go pro at the end of the year.
Trev, I addressed this one earlier, so I'll give you a call.
I heard you.
One.
Yeah, I'm gonna sell this one. I mean, in 2026, I don't really see that being much of a for 6 offensive linemen to come in 2026. I mean, maybe, but I don't know how many of them are going to be fighting for a starting spot. Odds are you want to try to redshirt as many of them as possible. So I'm going to sell this. One, I'm going to sell it because I don't believe all 3 of them go pro. Now, if they do, like Brian said earlier, that means Notre Dame had one heck of a season. And then in that light, I'm kind of all for it. But I don't think that all 3 of them do. I love Jagasaw's upside, but we're talking about a guy that has 2 career starts, and neither of them were at the position he's going to be starting in 2025. And so he would have to have one heck of a season to go from that to declaring for the draft. Shrouth, I want to see healthy for an entire season. Wagner, maybe, but I'm going to sell this overall.
Agree. You're not adding 26 kids to replace guys leaving before they even arrive.
Right.
You don't.
That would have had to have been done like last year. For even to sniff this scenario, you would have had to do that last year, in my opinion, because you want those guys to at least have a year under their belt. You can't recruit, at least at a place like Notre Dame. You cannot recruit hoping that all these freshmen hit and they can all jump into the starting lineup as true freshmen. Like that's unrealistic.
Especially a tackle.
Right, exactly. I mean, look, you might get your Charles Jagasaw, you might get, your random guy that can jump in as a freshman and be successful, but that's not how you recruit.
But and to your point, Vince, the argument could be made that some of those guys are already on the roster in 2025. There is still
signed a 5-star offensive tackle last year.
Yeah,
Gerby Lambert's a redshirt freshman. You've got Chris Tarrick, you've got Sylvan Absher, you've got Peter Jones. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Also from Lucky Duck, buy, sell, hold. The offensive staff will use Kedron Young to break the will of the defense in the 3rd and 4th quarter with with 10 plus touches in the second half alone, multiple games this season.
I'll buy that. Yeah, I'll buy that. In not even just blowouts, but like second half of you're trying to really punish a team and Because, I could see a drive where he does that on, like, most of that on one drive. It's 28-10. You put him in and you go on a 10-play, 5-minute drive where Keedron carries the ball 7 times. And it's ball game. By the time he runs into the end zone with a minute and a half left, it's now 35-10 and it's game's over. So, yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah, I'm definitely buying this one. I think back to the Georgia drive in the Sugar Bowl this past season when they just needed to eat the football and take time off the clock and really put it out of reach. If that same scenario happens this season, I got to imagine that's a 5'11", 242-pound running back's duty to kind of put that weight on his shoulders and kind of seal the deal there. So definitely a buy for me as well.
Another one from Lucky Duck. Buy, sell, hold after landing big-time player, number 1 long snapper Sean Kraft to start the 27 class. A quarterback will be the second 27 player added to the class.
So, Vince, first of all, I had somebody tell me that they thought you might quit over the fact that we're not doing a commitment show for the long snapper. And I said, I don't think he'll quit. He'll be a little annoyed at me, but he's not going to quit.
No, I'm not even annoyed. If you did it to a kicker, then let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
But, long snapper.
Can't get the kickoff if you don't have a great snapper, a great holder, Mr. Selfish.
You're not wrong. You're not. Hey, my son already played 9 holes of golf with the incoming long snapper. So, he's already cultivating the relationship.
It's like a quarterback getting to know a center really well.
Exactly right, man.
The first thing quarterback's got to do is get tight with the receivers. Nope. First thing a quarterback's got to do is get tight with his center.
100%.
Yeah, that's the guy you got to, then it's left tackles, then you get out to the other guys. So.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But no, I'll buy that. It's possible it may not be a quarterback, but I think the reason they offered 2 guys is because they want to kind of say, hey, look, here's where we're going. You got your shot. And if you don't want to be here, then we're going to go to somebody else. So I could see that being the case in the next month or 2. I could see that being the case. I'd say a couple months. I could see that being the case. But I think they could get a quarterback in that time period. But I could also see an offensive lineman jumping on board early. I could see a receiver jumping on board early. Because you got to think of it, man. Some of these positions, dude, like running back. Jaywan Sider's been recruiting running backs in 27 for over a month where it's just them. I mean, he's already got his 26 kids in the board. Like Notre Dame's doing a lot of work with tight ends. There's a lot of competition for that spot in the 2027 class, which means somebody who really wants to beat Notre Dame may say, hey, if I want to really beat Notre Dame, I better make this decision quick. So there are several positions like that, fellas, where, they're kind of done. And they've been, they had a lot of 27 kids on campus this spring, a lot of them. And so I could see it being somebody else. But for now, I think I'll go with quarterback. And then the dominoes start to fall once the quarterback's in the class, depending on who they get.
Yeah, I would say in an ideal world, like you want to secure your quarterback early, right? In a recruiting class. Because
ideally. You want to make sure it's the right guy, but
absolutely.
World, absolutely.
Yeah, because a lot of times the quarterback just because of his position, right, is the leader in that kind of recruiting guys to come. You know what I mean? And so Notre Dame has done a very good job of getting high-level recruiters as quarterbacks. You know what I mean? And they kind of take the mantle and they start recruiting guys to try to come into the class and all of those things. So if one of the guys that you're targeting is that kind of a guy, yeah, you want to get him in the fold as quickly as possible. DC Irishman, buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame will have 2 defensive players with 50-plus tackles.
So I'm taking this a different way, guys, and you tell me if you agree on this, because 2+ defenders with 50 tackles is not.
That's not much.
They had 6 last year,
right?
I think he was. I kind of took that as solo tackles.
Yeah,
that's what I figured too. Yeah,
and last year they had 2 at 55. You had Jack Kaiser at 55 and Xavier Watts at 52. There's a chance you could see more of a rotation at both spots this year. Drake Bowen only had 40. He was 3rd. And then the next guy was 36, Adon Schuler. So that to me makes more sense. So I think that's what this question is. So are you guys good with going in line with this question with solo tackles? And in that instance, I'm still going to buy it because I do think Drake Bowen is going to have over 50. And I could technically sell it because I could say I think there's going to be 3 with 50 or more solo tackles.
Oh, okay.
Like if I wanted to go that way. Yeah,
two or more.
like I'm going to go 2 for sure. I feel very comfortable with saying a Don Schuler and Drake Bowen are going to be over 50 this year. But I could also see, Kingston being at 50 this season. And, last year he didn't have a lot. He only had 9 last year, which is interesting. But I could see him making a big jump. Jaden Osbury had 35 last year in his first year in the rotation. I could see him making a jump this year. So I think a second linebacker could get to 50, especially if the defense does what I think it's going to, which is going to do more. I think they're like Al Golden put a lot on his linebackers from you had important roles in the defense, but he didn't put a lot on them. Like, you guys need to generate a lot of numbers. They had a lot of different, hey, I really need you to blow up this guard. Like, there was a play I was watching. I think it was the Georgia game I was watching the other night. Might have been the Penn State game. No, it was a Penn State game. Do you remember that third quarter when they had that first stop on Penn State? And it was like 3rd and 2, and Christian Gray made the tackle on that play where they forced I think it was RJ Open had a really nice set the edge. But if you go back and watch that play, the guy bowed because Drake Bowen came downhill and lit the guard up. Drake Bowen's job was not to get to the running back. Drake Bowen's job was to blow the B gap up, and he did. Now I think what you're going to see is more of Drake Bowen is being asked to flow to the football and make more plays. That's my guess. And that's why I'm going to go with definitely yes on this, buy this, but potentially more as well.
Yeah, I'm going to sell it for that reason. I'm going to sell it because I think it's going to be more than just 2. And I see it being 2 linebackers and a Don Schuler. I mean, the Don Schuler had 36 solo tackles last year, with Xavier going for over 50 solo tackles. And Adon Schuler also led the team in missed tackles with 18. And I think he gets some of that cleaned up this season as well, going into his second full year as a starter. And so, yeah, I'm going to sell it because I think it will be more.
I guess I could give an answer. I agree with you guys. I'm not going to get any deeper into what you guys just said because I agree all the way. The first 2 guys I thought of are the 2 linebackers in Bowen and KVA. Those are the 2 I think for sure. But I like Adon Schuler as well, coming down and making plays. So I guess it's a sell because I think there's going to be more. But if it said 2 or more, I would buy it. If that makes sense. So that's where I'm at.
It does.
Okay. So buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame will have 2 defensive players with 5+ interceptions. This is an interesting one.
I'm gonna sell this one. I don't know the last time Notre Dame did that.
It's a lot.
And it is. And it's possible. I mean, I could see Drake. I could see 5 or more interceptions from Adon Schuler and Christian Gray. It's possible. I'm going to sell it just because I think what you'll see is like one guy will have 5 or 6, another guy, a couple guys will have 3, and then a bunch of guys like 2 and 1 is normally how this goes. But I could see it. Like, somebody in the chat said maybe Moore and Gray both get 5 interceptions. I just would be shocked if quarterbacks threw enough at Leonard Moore in situations where he could have 5 picks.
I agree.
But the one thing that gives me pause is because they are going to be playing more or like more zone. Now, again, not as much zone as I think people are making it out to be, but more zone. There could be more times where you think Leonard Moore's playing off coverage and you try to throw a quick out and all of a sudden you didn't realize he's actually squatting on you. Maybe something like that. But I'm going to sell it, but I don't sell it with great conviction. And it just comes down to a lot of these times, like, have they ever been close to something like that? And in recent years, I mean, last year they had Xavier with 6, and the next 2 guys had 3. So that's not too far away, but that's in 16 games. You had 7 by Watts and 3 by Morrison in 23. You had 6 by Morrison, and then the next highest was a bunch of guys with 1 in 2022. Mm-hmm. Yeah, top 3 guys were 3, 3, 2, and 2. That's top 4 guys in 21. In 2010, nobody had more than 1. In 2019, you had Kyle had 4, Jalen Elliott had 2. 2018, Jalen Elliott had 4, Pride and Alohi had 2. In 2017, Jalen Love had 3, Sean Crawford had 2. So Cole Luke led the team in interceptions in 2016 with 2. The rest of the guys had 1. But it's been a minute. I'm actually, you know what? The 1 year. Hold on a second, because Manti had 7.
He had a bunch
in 2012. But did anybody else come close to that in 2012. Like, I don't remember anybody else like having a bunch. You had Bennett Jackson with 4. So that's the closest Notre Dame has been to having that kind of production in a while. I mean, last season, like I said, it was 2. It was one with 6, and then the next couple guys had 3, right? Didn't I just there was never a second guy that had 4, right? So you had 6-3-3, 7-3, 6-1, 3-3, 1, 4-2. Yeah, so you haven't had a second guy with more than 4, more than 3 anyway. But yeah, 2012 you had Manti with 7, and then Bennett Jackson was 4. So like that was close. So you're talking about over a decade since you even had anyone within 1 of that happening, like where a second guy was within 1 of that happening, and so I'm going to sell that, but I hope I'm wrong.
I'm going to sell it, but I'll say this: I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to make a bold prediction because it's fun. I think Notre Dame is going to have 6 players this season with at least 2. Last season they had 4. And this year, I think there's going to be 6 players with at least 2, with more zone that they're going to play. I think the linebackers are going to get more involved with getting interceptions. I mean, Kingston was the only linebacker last season with a pick. But I think pass rush is going to be more improved this year. So, yeah, I'm going to say there's going to be at least 6 players with 2 interceptions.
That's been weird, Trev, because you had only 1 linebacker pick last year, only 1 linebacker pick in 2023. That was Jack Kaiser. Only 1 linebacker pick in 2022. That was Maris Leofau. 2021, Jack Kaiser had 2, Bo had 2, and 1, and Drew White had 1. So you had 4 in 2021. But then the next year you had 3. Yeah, 1 from Kaiser, 1 from Bo, and 1 from Jeremiah Usukoromoa. In 2019, you had no linebacker interceptions. Only 1 linebacker interception in 2018. That was Tavon Coney. Not even Drew Tranquil didn't have a pick that year. 2017, Drew had 1 pick, and Greer Martini had a pick, and then no linebacker picks in 2016. So like Notre Dame, it's like Manti used up like a decade's worth of interceptions in one season, and they're just now catching up.
The ball was like a magnet to his hands that year. It was just amazing.
Well, and then he made some great plays too. Like that Oklahoma pick is still unbelievable, man.
Absolutely, but it was amazing how around the football he was in the passing game that year. It's wild.
Yeah. But to your point, though, Trev, it's like I do think you might see a couple more from linebackers. I think you're going to see just the range. I just think of the range of the players at safety. When I think of Luke Talich, and I think of Jadon Blair, and I think of Bronte Johnson, it's just like, dude, there's going to be some games where they're up and you're going to think, oh no, I got a cover 2 hole window here. And then you're like, nope, you don't. You don't have that hole you thought you did.
Sure don't.
Or you're playing cover 2 and you think, well, I can throw over this cornerback in the boundary. And you're like, nope, you can't throw over Leonard Moore like that. You know, he's fast and he's long and he's smart. So, yeah, I could see that, Trev. I could see that. Yep.
Next up from DC Irishman, buy, sell, hold, Notre Dame will have a defensive player with 10+ sacks.
If I knew that Boubacar Traore was going to be 100% healthy and ready to go in the first game of the year, I would absolutely take this. Absolutely take this, because he was on pace to have 12 last year in 16 games. But I just don't know that he's going to be there. And I also think that we're going to see the sacks spread around a little bit more. I think Burnham's going to have more. I think Bryce Young's going to have more. Boubacar Jr., Logan Thomas, the linebackers, you know, I mean, one of the reasons you brought in Jared Dawson is because he's a really good pass rusher. So he's going to give you some of that. Jason Onye has some potential to do that. So Donovan Heinisch obviously is a very good pass rusher and a guy that can. So I just think you're going to see, it's kind of like receiver. I think the sacks are going to be spread around a little bit more. And I've pointed this out before, guys, but you'll have some of the best sack teams in the country will go through a whole season and with 40, 50 plus sacks and not have a single guy with more than 10. And, you look at last year and you look at the teams that ranked in the top 10. I'm actually kind of doing this blind because I don't know if it was true last year, but it's been that true last year a lot. But yeah, like Boise State led the nation in sacks and they had one guy with the 10 or more and he had 10. And then, there was a year, Ohio State last year had led second in the team sacks. Their leader only had 12 and a half. So there's a years where Penn State had a team a couple years ago that was here's an example. Texas last year ranked 4th in the country in sacks last year. They didn't have anybody with 10, and they played 16 games. Penn State obviously had someone with more than 10. But, a couple years ago, Penn State was in the top 10 in sacks, and they did not have anybody with more than 10. So you had the year before. So last year in 16 games, Penn State had 44 sacks. The year before in 13 games, they had 49 sacks. So more sacks in 3 less games. And their highest sack guy was 7.5. And the year before that, Penn State had 42 sacks, and their highest guy was 6.5. So you see that like more often than you'd realize. SMU ranked 5th in the country in sacks last year. They played 14 games. Their highest sack guy was 7.5. They had 2 guys at 7.5. Duke was next in the country last year in sacks. They were 6th. Their highest guy was 7.5. So I'm finding out that what I've pointed out in past years is true last year. UNLV was a top 10 sack team last year at 42 sacks. Their highest guy was 7.5. And, so it happens a lot more than you think. Pitt last year, once again, high in sacks. They're tied for 10th, 41 sacks. Their highest guy only had 7, and it was a linebacker. So you see that quite often. 2 years ago, 2022, so it'll be 3 years ago now, Pitt was in the top 5, I think, in sacks with 48. Their 2 highest guys had 7. So you see this a lot, guys. North Carolina was tied for first last year. Their highest sack guy had 7.5. So you see this quite a bit where you'll see teams that have a lot of sacks, but they don't have that individual guy that is a big sack leader. And I think that'll be true again for Notre Dame this season.
Yeah, I'm with that. I'm with you.
The Irish insane. Buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame will have a run-heavy package with Tyler Buckner primarily to help Notre Dame close out games with a fourth quarter lead.
No, sell. If you're going to do that, I want to do that with Jardarian Price, Jeremiah Love, Keidron Young, Aeneas Williams, Jabron Payne, Nolan James, and to your point, Vince, Kenny. Or in a couple of those games, hey, Blake Hebert, let's let you get your feet wet, Mr. 225-pound true freshman.
Right.
You know what I mean? Who's pretty athletic. So I'm going to sell that. I don't see that happening.
Yeah. Yep.
I just don't see the benefit. You know what I mean? I mean, I do, but I don't.
I do if you just take out any context.
Okay, fair.
Like right, you see, because here's where I'm going with this, Vince. We know that Tyler Buckner is a very dynamic athlete as a runner. We've seen it at Notre Dame with our own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
The last time he started in a football game, he accounted for 5 touchdowns. He only threw 3 of them. And didn't he have I think it was like a 30, they ran a draw and ran for like a 30-yard touchdown. He had a couple scrambles. We know he's that guy. But you needed that then. You don't need that now. You just don't. And I love Tyler Buckner, but you just don't need that now. And if I can get extra reps for a quarterback at the end of the game, it's going to be for my number 2 quarterback, either Kenny Minchie or CJ Carr, whoever my number 2 is, not Tyler in his last year at Notre Dame. Because if I need a guy to close out a game, I'm going to put in my 242-pound redshirt freshman running back who's a stud. Not Tyler. I didn't have a Keidron Young in 2021. Actually, you did, Audric Estime, but they chose not to play him. They redshirted Audric Estime. Notre Dame, this is why just Brian Kelly drove me nuts. Redshirted Kyron Williams in 2019, despite them having running back depth issues. And then redshirted Audric Estime in 2021, despite not having a real deep depth chart at running back. And they used Tyler Buckner more. Why do you redshirt? If a running back is going to be a 5th-year guy, more likely than not, he's not going to be a guy you want back in his 5th year. I mean, they redshirted Tony Jones Jr. If there was ever a running back that for anything other than injury-related reasons was going to be a 5th-year running back, it'd have been Tony Jones Jr., and he didn't even stay for his 5th year. He could have come back in 2020, and he left, and, it just, there's no point in redshirting a running back, in my opinion. Now, Keidron wanted to redshirt. That's the difference. Where the other guys wanted to play, and Kelly said no. But the point, you didn't have a guy that they felt they could go to back then. Your 2 running backs after, you had Chris Tyree was banged up that year. You had Kyron Williams, who was a really good back. And then after that, 2 freshmen that they didn't want to play. And you needed Tyler Buckner, and he brought you a unique element. They don't need that now. They have the deepest running back room in all of college football. They have a number 2 quarterback that's going to want to play. I'm going to put those guys in the field, not Tyler. So I'm okay with the submission. I am. I don't think this is some stupid thing like, I don't even want to say a name because I just called it stupid, but like it's not some dumb thing where like, dude, come on, why are we talking about this? Like, oh, Notre Dame's going to put so-and-so tight end to Jack Larson. This is a legitimate submission, and I understand it because we've seen Tyler do it. It's just I just don't see the need for it anymore because of the makeup of this team. Because Tyler left, and so that opportunities that were in front of him, he chose not to take because he left. And now that he's back, it's great. I think he can help the team in certain ways, but you don't need him to do that anymore. You've got other guys that are just as good, if not better at that than him, that also have eligibility beyond 2025.
Right. Iden Benami, buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame's 26 recruiting class will have 0 decommits.
Didn't they already have a decommitment? I'm trying to remember. I could be wrong on that, but
maybe from here on out, you want to adjust it? Or?
I'm going to sell that. I have no idea. There's nobody that I know that is leaning towards decommitting. From what I can tell, this class is locked and loaded, but that's just not the reality of college football. If that happened, that'd be an anomaly. And it could also be where, maybe the season they have causes them to go out and have a great year and they feel they can go flip someone and kind of nudge somebody else out of the class. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know. I'm just saying hypothetically that could happen. So I'm going to sell that, but I don't sell it with as much ferocity that I normally would. No, like, guys, come on. Somebody's going to decommit. Just prepare yourself for it. I don't know that that's going to happen this year, but just history tells us that somebody will.
Mm-hmm. Buy, sell, hold. If CJ or Kenny didn't significant,
I think don't see.
Okay, I got you. If CJ or Kenny don't see significant improvement this season, Gino will warrant major criticism.
The submission initially was a lot more harsh. I kind of watered that down a little bit with the option of the criticism we would face. I think that this is a big year for Gino Guidugli, yes.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
You have 2 very talented quarterbacks. You basically had 2 ready-made quarterbacks who both regressed as passers under your tutelage. I don't necessarily blame him for that. I think there was unique circumstances both times, but they regressed. If you can't go get one of these 2 type of players to improve, yeah. And to a response in the chat, improvement on what? We have no baseline. Yeah, we do. It's called the month of September. It's about improving throughout the season. How a guy looks at, we saw that from Riley. We saw that from a senior last year in Riley Leonard. If you look at who Riley Leonard was in November, December, and January, he's a much better throwing quarterback than he was in September. And I think now I give a lot of credit of that to Mike Denbrock for altering the system, but you also have to be willing to give Gino some of that credit. But it's hard to evaluate Gino Guidugli's success on what we've seen at quarterbacks. He's been here because he's gotten transfers every year. And now it's guys that only he has coached. So if they struggle and they don't show improvement throughout the season, then yeah, I do think we can say, okay, well, this is the first thing we've seen from you, and it wasn't great. I think it'd be a little bit premature to go as far as what his original suggestion was. And I think you guys can get an understanding of what the response would have been. It was much harsher than criticism, which things we don't do here is what he was asking for. And I didn't want to ignore the question, but yeah, it's kind of raised some eyes. Cause I got some question marks about his recruiting strategy. And I got some question marks about his evaluation of quarterbacks. And we don't know anything about his ability to coach quarterbacks. And I've heard people say, well, he did help Steve Angeli improve. Yeah, to a degree, but improve to be what? A better backup quarterback? Like, that's not the standard for how you develop, how you're known for doing quarterbacks in Notre Dame. So, and again, none of this I'm saying about Gino Guidugli are criticisms. It's we don't know. We don't know what kind of coach he's going to be at Notre Dame because he hasn't been given the opportunity to develop a guy. He got Riley Leonard for fall camp. That's it. Like, how much are you going to do with the guy when all you really get is fall camp? He had Sam Hartman for a spring, And everybody talks about, Sam Hartman regressed. I'm like, did you see Sam in September, though? I mean, he was pretty nasty in September, and then the offensive line started to have problems. Injuries at receiver and all this other craziness was going on. So I just need to see improvement throughout the year. And if we don't see improvement throughout the year, and it doesn't have to be on a straight upwards, there's always going to be a little bit of this. But if we don't see straight improvement by the end of the year, then I do think that allows us to at least begin to question Gino Guidugli. But I don't know if it's going to be major criticism. It's like, hey, I got a little concerned about this. He better get this thing going next year. But I also don't know that if these guys improve a bunch that he necessarily warrants a quarterback guru either, because let's be honest, the two kids that he's coaching are pretty advanced kids the minute they got here. I mean, like, how much credit do you give a quarterback's coach for getting CJ Carr ready to go? You know what I mean? Like, I give a lot of credit to his dad and his grandpa more than I do, and God, who gave him these gifts. It's like God, Jason, Lloyd. I kind of give them a little bit more credit than I do as quarterback's coach, and that had been true no matter where he went, because he kind of showed up as like if you can't coach that dude up, you may want to find something else to do. Like, why don't you go try coaching receivers or something like that, because this ain't for you. But it's the mental improvement, the improving on certain things within the system that Gino Guidugli will be responsible for.
Yeah, the thing that's giving me pause is the major criticism. But as long as there's improvement throughout the year, I'm in line with what Brian said.
And guys, that's my watered down translation of what he was asking to have happen to Gino if it doesn't happen. I think that's way too strong. So I sell it as well.
Buy, sell, hold: Josh Burnham, Gabriel Rubio, Bryce Young, Jason Onye, Jared Dawson, KVA, Jaden Osbury, and Jalen Snead will all have 2 or more sacks. Buy, sell, or hold.
Yeah, I'm going to buy it. Josh Burnham last season, I know he had at least 1 credited. Gabe Rubio, I know, had 1. Bryce Young had 1.5. Not entirely sure how many Jason Onye had. Jared Dawson had significantly more than 2, I believe, when he was at Louisville.
He had 4.5.
Okay. KVA, I know, had 1. Jaden Osbury, I don't know if he had any last season.
He had a half a sack.
And then Jalen Snead had 2.5. 2.5? Okay. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, this is an easy buy for me. I think that all the players that you listen – the one pause that I do have is Gabe Rubio. He would be the one, I believe, that if somebody weren't going to, I think it could be him. But I think over the course of a 15, 16 game season, I think he'll find a way to get another one in there. Because remember, he didn't play the first part of the regular season.
He missed the first 6 games, I think, 6 or 7 games. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, this is a buy for me.
I'm gonna sell it simply from the standpoint of, why did you leave off Donovan Heinisch? Because Donovan Heinisch was second on your team in sacks last year. But no, I'll buy the names you gave. Josh Burnham had 2 last year. Bryce Young last year only had 1.5, but he'll definitely have more than that this year. Jason Onye had 1.5 in 5 games. He'll go above that. Jared Dawson had 4.5. Kingston only had 1 last year, missed 2 games. He'll have more. He'll have at least 2. And Jalen Snead had that number last year. The only guy that I'm not concerned about, but question, is Jaden Osbury. Just because they didn't use him to blitz a whole lot last year. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the new coach will use him to blitz more. I don't know. And I don't know that I love Jaden Osbury blitzing. I think he's an incredibly instinctive linebacker that I want. Let somebody else blitz and let him read the screen, read the check down, and get in coverage. Like that's using his skill set better. Not that he can't blitz, but it's just, if I have 2 linebackers on the field and Jaden's one of them, I don't know that he's the guy that I want blitzing. He's the guy I want, finding the back, looking up the wheel route, looking up the tight end cross, looking up the mesh, spying the quarterback. I'd rather have him do that because I think he's a pretty good open field tackler. So I think that's more of a usage thing. Rubio had 1 last year and he missed, he played last season. He had missed 5 games, like we mentioned. So, I'll buy everybody on that list except for Jaden Osbury. So I'm also going to sell it because I don't know that Jaden's going to get there just because of a usage standpoint. Everybody else will. But if you were to drop Jaden Osbury and add Donovan Heinisch, then I'm back to buying.
I'll be the pessimist of the group. I'm going to sell it just because it's just a lot to go right. Not that I don't think it could happen, because you all made very, very compelling arguments. I don't want to be too rosy colored for me personally.
Well,
on two
that's
sacks.
That's 8 guys, and then the last 4 years, so in 2021 they had 9 guys with 2 sacks or more.
Okay.
In 22 they had 9 guys with 2 sacks or more. In 23 they had 8 guys with 2 sacks or more. And in 24 they had 8 guys with 8 sacks or more.
Okay. That's right at 8, and there's 8 guys on here. So
right. And so that's what I'm saying is like
everything has to go.
That's why I sold it, and I buy it if you replace Alsbury with Heinisch. Now I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
Because if these 8 all get to 2, he will too. Now you're getting a lot of sacks. And again, I just don't see Alsbury as being that guy that they use to blitz a ton. It's playing the guy's strengths. I want Jaden Alsbury running in pass game running this way, not this way.
Right.
Just because of how instinctive and how good of a tackler he is.
I'm very curious to see what they do with Jaden Alsbury this year. You know what I mean? Like how are they going to use him? Because I mean, he's a great athlete. You got to get him on the field somehow, some way. But how are they going to do it? That's actually one of the many fascinating questions that I have from a usage standpoint is Jaden Alsbury and what they're going to do with him.
And the other, where's Logan Thomas? Like that, he'll get some sacks.
Right.
Where's Boubacar? So now, if we expect those guys to get 2 sacks, now we're talking like 10, 11 sacks. So I don't have any issue with 8 guys getting sacks. I don't know that I necessarily buy this 8, but that's also what I think makes this a little harder buy so hold, which makes it a better buy so hold. Because he could have gone obvious and got rid of Jaden, got rid of Rubio, put on Boubacar, put on Junior, put on Logan Thomas, guys that are more obvious picks, but he kind of thought outside the box a little bit.
Which I appreciate.
Linebackers, which I think it makes it a more fun discussion.
Correct. Yeah. Agreed. All right. Buy, sell, hold. The state of Texas will have more college football playoff teams than Florida and all other states for that matter.
Well, in individual states, so definitely more than Florida.
The odds are really good because Texas is huge and they got a lot of teams.
So
Did Indiana have the most last year?
Who?
Right. Indiana, the state of Indiana.
They were tied for the most because there was also 2 from Texas.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
SMU and Texas.
SMU and Texas. Yep.
Yeah. So last year you had a team from Oregon, you had a team from Georgia, you had a team from who was the 3? Idaho, a team from Arizona, a team from Texas. You had a team from Pennsylvania, a team from Indiana, a team from Ohio, a team from Tennessee, a team from Indiana, a team from Texas, and a team from South Carolina. So Indiana and Texas tied last year with 2.
Okay. They were the only ones with multiples, yeah.
Right. And then, which is wild that Indiana.
I know.
Who would have thought that before the year? Like,
I will not be taking that bet moving
you're
into
on
this
drugs.
Year,
yes. You are smoking crack.
Oh, especially going into last year. Are you kidding me?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. No kidding.
You wouldn't even take that this year. But I'm looking at my field for this year, and I'm just going through it. And I think my answer to that will be Texas, but I'm just kind of going through it. I don't think that I would have more than that, but so far I don't have anybody from 2. I know I have 2 from Texas. Actually, I have. There's one team that I'm a little bit unsure of when I look at my rankings for this year, and so, but for right now I have them in, and right now in my preseason playoff bracket, I have 3 teams from Texas getting in.
Oh,
yeah,
A&M.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And I have a team from Maryland getting in.
Who would that be? Deal.
There's only 2 options.
Maryland, and who else is in Maryland?
Navy.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. We don't know because we've never actually played them in. Like, aren't they from New Jersey? Isn't that why we always play them when we play road games against Navy?
I always forget that Annapolis is in Maryland. I honestly did forget that. That's legit. I'm like, who else? Like, I'm like, there's no way he thinks Maryland is getting into the playoffs.
No, they're going to be terrible.
I was very confused.
I have Navy as one of my playoff teams.
Okay.
So yes.
All right.
But I have 3 teams from Texas and no other state having more than 1, so I buy that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was starting to think of like the obvious choices of teams that are going to make the playoff, and then is there another team in that state that could potentially come out? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, you got to think there's 3 different Power 4 leagues that have teams from Texas that have a shot to win their league.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
You have Texas and Texas A&M in the SEC. You've got TCU and Texas Tech in the Big 12. I don't put Baylor in that conversation, but with the Big 12 guys, you never know. Who had Arizona State on their Big 12 champs prediction last year? They were coming off a 3-9 year where they were not even close most of the games. And then you've got SMU in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got 3 leagues that could have a champion from Texas. And I think that adds a little something to it. I mean, 2 leagues that had a team from Texas in their conference title games last year when you had SMU in the ACC and then Texas in the SEC title game. They both lost, but they both made the playoffs. So I could certainly see that. But yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy that.
For my bracket, I buy that they will have more than Florida, but I sell that they will have more than all other states individually.
Which state do you think will have more? Or is it you just think Texas is only going to have one?
I think Texas is only going to have one.
Okay.
Okay.
Our playoff prediction show is going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I got 3. He's got 1. I don't feel great about my 3, but part of my prediction goes into one of Trevor's predictions of top 10 quarterbacks. So it's going to be a fun show. So I'm going to stop teasing that because that's messed up. But let's get to the next one.
Because that's messed up.
Because I haven't given my full bracket yet. I just keep teasing people with who I have.
It was just funny. You're like, that's messed up.
I'm being a jerk. I'm being a jerk face. I need to stop.
JG Y-Town. Buy, sell, hold. Most rushing yards. Jabron Payne, Aeneas Williams, Keedron Young.
So I'm gonna buy Keedron. I'm gonna hold Aeneas and sell.
Oh, is that how we're doing this? Okay.
Yep. Buy one, sell one, hold one. Is what he wants us to do.
I'm in the same boat.
Yep. Agreed. Most yards after catch. Jordan Faison, Aeneas Williams, Eli Raridan.
Buy Faison, hold Raridan, sell Aeneas.
I'm going to buy Raridan, hold Faison, sell Aeneas.
I'm with Brian. I think Faison's going to have the most. And then the other two are a bit of a toss-up, but Faison is definitely my buy.
The thing that hurts Aeneas is he's going to have a lot of catches where he gets tackled right away.
Yeah.
Just the nature of when you catch the ball with your back to the defense, like a check down running back will do a lot, it's going to limit. Like he could have a great play where he makes 3 guys miss and gains 6 yards because he caught the ball 2 yards behind the line. You know what I mean? Like that's whereas Eli Raridan catches a crossing route, makes 1 guy miss and runs for 40 yards. That's 40 yards after the catch. You know, just the nature of the position. Like I could see Aeneas having more forced tackles missed forced tackles, but less yards per yards after contact, I should say.
Yeah. Buy, sell, hold. Which team has the best shot to make the playoffs? TCU, Minnesota, or Louisville?
I'm going to go TCU because I think they have the best shot to win their league.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Louisville hold, and I'm going to sell Minnesota because I don't think Minnesota has a snowball's chance and of making the college football playoff.
If they had a different head coach, do you think they have a chance?
No, it's still Minnesota. I think PJ Fleck did a really nice job with that team last year. Like I'm not a big PJ Fleck fan, but I thought he did a really nice job getting as much out of last year's team as he could. So, but no, it's just they don't have the roster. They have maybe made a run back before Oregon, USC, Washington, and join the league. Yeah, sure, but not now because you just got to be in the top 3 or 4. Back in the day, it's like okay, at Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. And then you were battling with like Michigan State and Wisconsin and Nebraska for that 4th spot. And now it's like you've got Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Oregon, USC, all there. You got to jump into that group to make the playoff. Well, Indiana did that last year, and I don't think PJ Fleck is going to be able to do that. And I also don't think Minnesota has the schedule this year to be able to accomplish what Indiana did. Like, Indiana deserved to be in the playoff last year because of what they accomplished.
Yeah.
But you'll never hear me say if they had Alabama's record, they're 12-0. Or if they had Georgia's record, they'd have been 10-2. They wouldn't have. But that's irrelevant to me because they didn't have that schedule. So it's really just a guess. It's an assumption. But you did know that Florida was not going to have a schedule that was going to allow them to make a run. And Minnesota has to play at Ohio State. They have to play at Iowa. They have to play at Oregon. Plus, they have home games against Nebraska, Michigan State, and Wisconsin. That's and their non-conference is Cal and Buffalo, and let me try it. No, actually, I think this is Cal, Northwestern State, and Buffalo. So they won't have much of a non-conference to sell if they have 10 because we can all agree that Indiana belonged in at 11-1. I think we all agreed on that based on how the season went out. Did we all agree that Indiana deserved a spot in the playoff last year, 11-1?
Yep. Absolutely.
Do we all also agree that I would have put a 9-3 SEC team over a 10-2 Indiana with last year's schedule?
Yep.
10-2 Minnesota ain't getting in, and they're not going to beat Ohio State and Oregon on the road. They're not going to beat either one of those teams on the road. So it's just not going to happen. So, no, they're not going to get in. No chance.
Love it.
But I would have said the same thing about Indiana a year ago.
Oh, me too. Like, why are we even having that? Why are we wasting the airwaves talking about Indiana making the playoff? Like, that's wow.
No, Brian, you're missing the point. It's called the NCAA tournament. They don't call it a playoff in basketball, Brian. I don't know why you're still having this conversation.
And I would still be like, why are we wasting our time talking about IU basketball?
True.
Because they're not making the tournament either.
They didn't, but I would have thought they would have had a shot to.
Right. The history expert, buy, sell, hold, CJ Carr or Kenny Minchie will throw for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns against Miami because A, Miami will sell out to stop the run, and B, their secondary has no experience playing together and will have a busted coverage or 2.
Buy.
You want to buy? Everybody wants to buy this. I can see the look on Brian's face.
Well,
I didn't want to be first. I want to let some of you guys
Go ahead, Trevor. You explain yourself.
Earlier, I just see it. He's waiting. He's waiting. He's like, no. Look, I said it earlier in the offseason that I think between the Miami and Texas A&M game, whoever starts at quarterback for Notre Dame is going to put together a performance that kind of makes everybody go, okay, they've got their guy. And I think it's going to come against Miami. One, I think Texas A&M's defense is going to be better than Miami's this season. And Texas A&M played Notre Dame last year. Little bit more on the line there. Miami secondary, you are right. The history expert, it is put together through transfer portal guys. I don't think that automatically deems them as being a bad secondary. I won't write them off just because they're transfers, but not a lot of experience playing together. That's an advantage that Texas A&M has over them as well. And I do believe that the first 2 teams are going to sell out to stop the run. And so, yeah, this is a buy for me.
I was going to say, I'm with you guys. I'm with you, Trevor. This was a buy. And we kind of talked about this yesterday on one of the shows, but about how these first 2 games specifically, defensive coordinators are going to sell out to stop the run. Like that's what they're going to do, because you look at the way this offense is put together, all the love that Jeremiah Love is getting and Jadarian Price and, this offensive line and all these different things. It's going to be stop the run and let's see what we can do against the pass game. Like that, I don't see how that's not the defensive game plan, especially against Miami. I feel like that's what they're going to do. And there's going to be opportunities for whoever the quarterback is to make plays. And I think they will make plays. I think there's going to be a heck of a game plan going in. Are they going to be able to run the ball? Of course they're going to run the ball. But there's going to be opportunities in the play action game. There's going to be opportunities just in a straight drop back game where CJ Carr, Kenny Minchie are going to take advantage of Miami on some islands and just doing some different things where they're going to scheme some guys open to get the quarterback comfortable, all of those different things. And I just think that they're going to have some serious success. And I very much am looking forward to that post-game show. I can tell you that right now. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm going to buy that. And it's the matchup. They're going to stop the run. Their secondary, I don't even know if it's going to be about busted coverages or such. I just think it's going to be, I don't know that their guys can cover the Notre Dame guys. I think that's part about it too. I mean, I don't know that Miami, are they improved at corner? Sure. Do they have anybody that can cover Malachi Fields? I don't know. Do they have anybody that can cover Eli Raridan? I don't know. Do they have anybody that can cover Jaden Greathouse? Well, Penn State and Ohio State didn't. Texas A&M didn't. Louisville didn't. So, as I've said before, when they actually threw him the ball, he has as good slot numbers as any slot receiver in the country last year. So, I think we're going to see some things that Notre Dame's going to do in the pass game that Miami's not necessarily quite prepared for, that Texas A&M will have a much better read on, because A&M is going to have an extra whole week to prepare for some of that stuff. So I'll buy that. I think the starting quarterback is going to have one game where he plays lights out, one game where he's going to make some mistakes that you got to overcome because that's what young quarterbacks do early. If they come out and play well in both games, it's almost going to be kind of like, how do you slow down this hype machine? Like that's where you kind of get into some like, okay, this could get weird. Cause like you guys remember, I don't know if you guys remember this, but like CJ Stroud's first 2 games of college, he was really freaking good. You know, they ended up losing the Oregon game, but CJ threw for 484 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. As a redshirt freshman, for all the people, you'd have to have experience. CJ Stroud threw a grand total of 0 passes in 2020. But in his first 2 games of college football, he went 48 of 76 for 778 yards and 7 touchdowns and 2 picks against 2 Power 5 teams, Minnesota and Oregon. So you kind of set a bar where it's like, well, there's nowhere to go but down from here. I mean, you know what I mean? So we'll kind of see how that goes. But yeah, I'm going to buy that.
Domer,
God, this is one of the worst questions that was ever asked. Like thinking about all these is like
okay,
it's torturous.
Oh, okay. So, but Domer since birth, buy, sell, hold, be stuck in the middle seat of a transatlantic flight with no entertainment, work, electronics, etc. In between. Number 1, Brian Kelly and Ron Paulus. Number 2, Van Gorder and Lincoln Riley. 3, James Franklin and a special on 3 rider who will go unnamed. Oh my. First of all, you're unprepared by not having anything to do, like any headphones, any book to read. Like there's a little bit of self-blame going on here if this is the case. But
I would buy Brian Kelly and Ron Paulus because they are the type of people that they would be like, why is this peon next to me on the plane and I'm not going to talk to him the entire time?
That's a good one.
I've seen one of these 2 guys at the grocery store a few times, and he works hard to not make eye contact with people. Hard.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, you do.
Without you even telling me.
Yes, you do. Like It is like a job of his to not make eye contact with peons, meaning everyone that, isn't at Notre Dame that he works for or works with. So, yeah. And I wouldn't mind if Brian Kelly wanted to strike up a conversation with me because then I'd have a chance to tell him what I think. I would want no part of being stuck between Lincoln and Brian Van Gorder. I would not mind sitting next to Lincoln Riley, though. I would actually love to sit next to Lincoln Riley on a plane because I just want to talk football with him. Because that's the one thing Trevor and I say all the time. Lincoln Riley's not a very good head coach. And I think he's kind of a bit of a wussy when it comes to scheduling and facing a chance. Well, he left Oklahoma to go to USC instead of LSU and all that other kind of stuff. But that guy knows freaking football. And if he was willing to talk to you on a flight, and talk ball with you, man, like I would love that. And I think Lincoln Riley would actually be willing to listen to someone if he cared enough to have a conversation with me. I think it would be because he would be like, dude, why you say this kind of stuff? And I'd explain to him why. And I think he would probably disagree with me, but he just strikes me as a decent guy. Just like I've never come across like Lincoln Riley's like this big scumbag guy. He's never struck me that way. I just think he's not a very good coach. So that's the one I'd probably buy or hold next, even though it's Van Gorder's on the other side, because I'd probably want to. Never mind, I'm going to say it. I can't say that. I'd sell the heck out of number 3. That'd just be a miserable
3
flight.
Would be by far the worst.
Like I would have never rooted for a
close.
plane to crash into a mountain more in my life than if I was on that plane. So, but yes, I would buy number 1. I'd end up buying number 2 if I wanted to have a conversation with people, and then I'd hold number 1 and sell number 3 because the first one I wouldn't have no entertainment, no work, no electronics, and I'm stuck between 2 guys who are going to pretend like I don't exist.
It's true. You're just going to stare off into space, like in the middle seat in front of you.
Yeah, maybe I'd have a book.
I would buy the first one. Just because, Paulus's kids went to my kid's high school where I work. So we could talk about other things where I feel like maybe the conversation can get, go a different direction or whatever. But the third one is at the absolute worst because you got one on one side, and then you got a Michigan lover on the other, and that would be awful.
He's not even a Michigan lover. He's just going to say that about whatever
know.
school he's covering. He's just a dishonest, whiny little D-bag. That's basically what he is. And the other guy would not. The problem with the other guy is he would want to talk the entire flight.
Yeah, he'd start talking about your hairline.
I'm like, dude, I don't want to talk to you. You're weird. Stop. Don't make me call Marcus Freeman on you. I'll do it.
Right.
You
Now,
know what I mean? Like,
is there a fourth option? Because I want to sit behind you, sitting between Brian Kelly and like Ron Paulus, because I want to see you go off. That's the buy for me.
That'd be a great seat in the house. Well, let me ask you guys this one: if you could pick from a football standpoint, if you could be on a plane with two guys next to you that were willing to engage in conversation with you about football, who would you want to sit next to? I think mine would probably be Harry Hiestand and Steve Spurrier. That'd be mine.
Okay.
I'd go old school on it.
I'd like to sit between Lou Holtz and Marcus Freeman.
Oh, that'd be a good one.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one.
Because we're just talking football. I would actually want to pick the brain of Tommy Rees a little bit. Because he is football smart.
He's fun to talk football with, too, by the way.
100%.
Because he's really smart.
I have heard that, and I would like to take part in that at some point. Like, I think that would be fun. And Marcus Freeman would be my other one.
I don't think Marcus would talk to me on a flight. That's why I don't think I'd go with him. Lou Holtz. I can't believe I just like Lou Holtz, but just like that'd be. I don't know that I want to talk football with Lou Holtz though. I don't want to talk stories
and stories.
Yeah, but like my thing was more just I don't want to talk football.
Right.
Like with Lou and Marcus, it's more talking about life and talking about the players, and that'd be a fun flight. That'd be a dream flight right there, man. You're not kidding, Vince. It's a good one.
I have a different answer for Domers, actually. I'm gonna buy number 3 because I really like to chirp, and I would make sure that James Franklin and the on 3 rider would have a worse time than I did on that flight. I would make it my sole mission to make sure that they would have a worse time than me on that plane. I really I'm so serious. I would buy 3. I would hold 2 because to your guys' point, I would like to talk to Lincoln Riley. I'm selling the heck out of one. I don't want to be anywhere near Brian Kelly. Yeah. I don't want to be in the same vicinity as him. I'm good. But yeah, 3.
Because you met him once and he was a total jerk to you.
Yeah, I was at a Notre Dame football camp and we all were like taking pictures in like the tunnel. And I was like, hey, man, can't wait for the season. It's, going to be super exciting. He's like, yep, thanks. And then just kind of shooed me along. And I was like, all right.
I bet you enjoyed Gatorade at that camp.
I did.
Thanks. You're welcome. Vince is like, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
I would make sure they'd have a worse time than I did.
I would. It would become
so petty. I love it.
I would get medieval with it, bro. Like if we got to have like food, I would get the smelliest food. Like I would spill it on them. Fish. Like whenever there was turbulence. I mean, dude, everything. I'm serious.
That would be
fantastic.
Great. Love that answer.
Buy, sell, hold. If Notre Dame had a bye on September 27th, logistics, money are not a factor, and you have to attend a game in person as a spectator. So buy, sell, hold. Oregon at Penn State, Alabama at Georgia, LSU at Ole Miss. That's just
that is a loaded weekend of football games.
Here's where I'm going.
Kidding me?
I think that's why Notre Dame is at noon. By the way, that's the weekend Notre Dame plays Arkansas at noon.
That's right.
So just FYI.
Yeah.
For me, it's a buy LSU Ole Miss. I want that SEC smoke. I've heard Ole Miss is like an awesome place to catch a football game before and during. I'm ready to wear my collared shirt and khaki shorts, to a football game. And so that would be my buy. My hold would be Alabama, Georgia, because it's Alabama, Georgia. And the sell pretty distantly would be Oregon at Penn State.
I would buy Oregon at Penn State. Say whatever you want about Penn State. That's a great place to watch a football game. I've been told by a lot of people. I've never been to one. I would also probably root for Oregon just to troll all the Penn State fans in the stadium. But that would be a really entertaining game. Hold Alabama, Georgia, because the only reason if I hadn't been to a game at Georgia, I might change my answer. But I was at Notre Dame at Georgia in 2019, so I've been there. So it be some of the uniqueness of it being off. I did go to a Michigan Penn State basketball game back in the day at Penn State, but not a football game. LSU Ole Miss, I think it'd be a really cool place to watch. I just would care less about that game than the other two. I just,
I want to see.
I think there's title contenders in the first two games.
Yeah.
I don't think there are in this third one.
Yeah, I'd buy Alabama, Georgia. I would love to go down and see a game in Athens. That'd be really cool. I would, as much as I joke about Penn State, I would love to go to Beaver Stadium and watch a game. That would be really, really cool. With that being said, I would go to that game dressed like a duck, but I would go. I would
Trev
go
is
watch
on
it.
Are you still mad about your internet going out, dude? Like, 'cause you are on fire right now.
Look, man, the AC also went out in here for a little bit. I was getting hot. I was getting worked up.
I was getting cranky.
And I started thinking about that darn plane. And look, man, I'm fired up. But no, I would buy Georgia, Alabama. I would buy hold Oregon at Penn State, and then I would set LSU at Ole Miss. I think it would be a cool game to go to, but as far as stadiums go, Ole Miss is kind of lower on my like stadium bucket list than what Athens or Beaver Stadium would be.
Fair. I will say this, guys. As much as Georgia fans get on my nerves on Twitter, and they do, Georgia fans in Athens were awesome. They were great. They were great at the restaurant I went to that day. They were great walking in. They were great after the game. They were awesome. And any trash talking that was done around me was like fun trash talking you enjoy to be a part of at a sporting event, not the I'm trying to start a fight trash talking. Just like that was a great play. Much different than like the Ohio State people were when we were there that day. And much different than like Michigan fans are. I had so much like if I was never on Twitter, I'd think Georgia and Clemson have the two best fan bases in college football out, like of the big time schools. Utah people were awesome when they came to South Bend in 2010, but the Georgia people in 2017 were also awesome. They were great. So, but I've been there. That's why. But they're a really good, cool fan base. Cool fan base.
Just to piggyback off of that, when we were down in New Orleans when Notre Dame was playing Georgia, and obviously we were walking around, and it was like 10-1, first of all, ratio Georgia fans to Notre Dame fans, and Georgia fans were awesome. Like we went to the parade and everything, and they were cheering for Georgia's band, and
of course they should have,
and they should be absolutely. But it was like fun and games, jeering. With each other and things like that. And so they were great. They were great. They didn't, give you the finger when you were walking by because I was wearing Notre Dame stuff all the time. They were actually very cordial people. And we went on a tour with this Georgia family, and we were just having a great time just talking about various things. And, and they were Georgia, man, like the accents and like the whole like down there.
They get that Savannah type of twang.
And
Brian Kelly thought he was speaking Southern. Bro, you're speaking Savannah. You ain't speaking Southern.
Right. I mean, and it was like the mom was like this perfect like Southern belle. Like they were like the prototypical.
They are the stereotype of Southern people.
You know what I mean? Like in all the good ways.
In the good ways, yeah.
But
Huntington people were pretty awesome too. I've been there now twice, and they were really cool both times.
Right.
Ash, our guy Archer 452 said, to be fair, BD, Vince was trying to fight everyone in Columbus that night. Facts. But Vince was that way because of the experience going into the stadium. And how rude people were. They had him all churned up.
Because I'm usually pretty easy going, man. Like
you are. Not that night.
Not that day.
So for those who don't know the story, first of all, we had this big lady cut us off trying to pull into a thing, starts yelling at Vince. I'm like having to hold him from jumping out the car.
I put the window down.
To go after this lady that was twice his size, and I'm like, man, I'm about to take out her dude because Vince is about to take this lady out. And then people were rude. The cops were super rude.
Oh, yeah.
Like just people walking up were just like foul mouthed. And it just like it. Now I've heard people say they had a great experience that day. We didn't.
We did not.
And so when the Notre Dame loses the game, Vince is walking out of the stadium. And I'm trying to publish a story because we were trying to get out of there. And so I'm looking, I say, Vince, I need you to stay right in front of me so I don't like start bumping into people because I need to publish a story. I look up 15 seconds in, and Vince is 15 feet ahead of me wider, like as wide as Quentin Nelson, purposely bumping into people, like trying to get somebody to do something. I'm like, dude, do you not like? I'm about to have to. Sorry, I couldn't publish a game story. I had to stop Vince from getting jumped. I had to take out a couple dudes because this guy's peacocking, trying to pick a fight with a stadium of 100,000 people against 12. You know what I mean?
Mad.
He was cranky.
You guys aren't alone in your rough experience in Columbus in 2020.
Yes,
you guys aren't alone. I was there too.
Yes, it just from the minute you get in town, you're just like, man, these people are just not fun to be around.
So. Yeah, they wouldn't let me and my wife use the bathroom at a Target that was off campus.
Are you serious?
Swear.
That's
wow.
ridiculous.
Yeah, so
that doesn't shock me. I guess.
No, I thankfully Lauren was with me because I was about to make a scene.
Yeah, I was about to be a misunderstanding here.
I was saying there's about to be some consequences and repercussions for not letting me use that bathroom because aisle 13 was looking real awesome at that point. Yeah, bro. Anyways.
Hopefully, and luckily, they didn't catch Trevor on a day where his power went out and the air conditioner wasn't working because then it might have, Man. Why didn't you hire Trevor Trowbridge? He's currently serving 5 to 7. That's why he's not doing it.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, my goodness. Archer said, shout out to Target for standing on business. Well played, Ohio State fan. Well played, my dude. Well played. That's really well done from the Ohio State fan. That is great.
Oh,
that is awesome.
That's fantastic.
Oh, man, that was good. All right, we got our next one up.
Okay.
This is going off the rails a little bit. Just trying to get back on track, guys.
Oh, Domer since birth. Buy, sell, hold. The impact on recruiting for the class of 27 during the 25 season. One running back with 1,750 yards, one wide receiver with 1,400 yards, and one defensive end with 15 sacks.
I think it would be the one wide receiver with 1,400 yards as the buy. The hold, and it is a very close hold, is the 15 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sell is the running back for 1,750 yards because I don't know. Like, can Notre Dame recruit running back any better than they have the last 4 years, 5 years? Like, I don't know that there's anywhere to go.
Right.
But down at running back right now in recruiting. Like, what stud can they not get anyway? You know what I mean? Like, they just went down to Texas and Georgia and took dudes, top 100 dudes from those states. So I don't know that there's a needle to be moved at running back. I think they're already recruiting defensive end pretty well. And but the receiver one would be huge. Like, that would be huge.
Yeah. Yep. I'm in the same boat as you are.
Oh, that would be, man. That'd also be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Any one of these three would be fun.
It's been a minute since we've experienced that. Well, it's 2009, right? Golden went over 14. That's the only time I think Notre Dame's ever had that, a receiver.
All right.
Right? Am I wrong? Didn't Golden go over 14 in 2009?
Ooh, that's true. That's been.
I think he did because that was the year that he won the Bolitnikov, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had over 90 catches. Let me go. Golden Tate college stats. I thought he was over 90 and over 1,400. He had 93 catches. He had 1,496. Is anybody as good as Will Fuller was in 2015? I think he had like 1,265 yards. Let me look up here real quick. So, let's see, Will Fuller, he was a 1,258. So I was wrong, 1,258. Think about that. As good as he was that year, he got to 1,258. Golden had over 200 more yards than he had. And here's the crazier thing. Will Fuller played 13 games that year. Golden Tate only played 12. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. We got some family advice here.
This is awesome, by the way. Congratulations, A. Sakalowski.
Okay, good. I was like, not sure where the initials start and the last name ends. All right. Names, buy, sell, hold, names for our baby coming in a couple of weeks. First boy. First of all, congratulations. So we got James Theo, short for Theodore, and Riley. I don't know why, but the name Riley grew on me at the end of last year.
I feel terrible, like, even doing a sell or a hold on this because, like, what if the wife likes the name that I would sell? That
and he can blame you, not him.
Yeah, he could. That's a good point. So I'll do this. I'm selling Theo because I don't love that name, Theo or Theodore, or you might also go by Ted or Teddy. I don't necessarily love any of those names that I would want to give to a kid. Plus, anytime I think of the name Theo, I think of the Cosbys.
Cosby, baby.
You know? But, I mean, Riley's a good name. James is a good one, too, because I like the name Jimmy. I like that. That's kind of my era is a cool name to give. James is also biblical, whether you want to talk about James, the brother of John, or you want to talk about James, the brother of Jesus. There's a couple big Jameses in the Bible, but then also the nicknames are cool. You Jimmy when you're young, and then Jim when you get older, or James. And where Riley, you're just Riley, So, and I don't know. I can't really say why I wouldn't give a name like that, but people might take it the wrong way, but I would hold Riley, buy James, and sell Theo or Theodore. But here's the thing, man. It doesn't matter what you name your kid. That's an awesome deal. You're going to have a son. And that's pretty cool, man. It's very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So what would you guys –
My answer was kind of a cop-out answer. I was going to say buy whatever your wife wants.
I mean – We've named 5 kids, obviously, and every one of our children was baby boy or baby girl D'Addario for like 3 days because we're so indecisive when it comes to naming our children. And the twins were A and B for like a week. So I'm serious. Like they were in the NICU, and on the little bed that they were in, it just had an A. Like this is just baby girl A.
That is fun.
But anyway. Picking names is hard, man, because especially if you're in my profession as a teacher, because there's a lot of names that have just pissed me off over the years. It's like I can't have that be my kid's name.
That's fair. Yeah. Yeah. My mom's a teacher. She said that too.
Yeah, that's a legit thing, man. So there was a couple of X's I got to, get those out of there. But as far as for these 3, you can't go wrong with any of these, my man. I would say I am partial to Riley because I coached at Riley. And obviously Riley's it's a popular name these days, I feel like. So that's a popular situation. I would go Riley, James for all the reasons that Brian said, and then Theo would probably be last. I also think of the Cosby Show when I think of Theo or the Chipmunks. Like that's those are the 2. So
yeah, you'd be buying your kid Chipmunks DVDs, and he wouldn't know what the heck you're talking about. Like he wouldn't get it. Like I don't get it. Man.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I go with all that, man. But like I said, this is the least of your worries. Enjoy being a dad, and it sounds like you may have a daughter already because it's his first boy. Yeah. But enjoy being a dad. It's awesome. I will say that.
I'm just glad you guys eventually settled on a name.
I know, right?
This is my daughter A. This is my daughter B.
Hey, would have cleared up any kind of controversy. You know what I mean? That easily remember.
I need your full name, ma'am. I gave it to you. A. No, I don't need your. I need your name. It's A.
It's A. That's it.
I'm giving you my full name. My parents are idiots. I don't know what you want. I don't know what you want from me.
A. Dang it. All right.
NH. This is because you married a Florida State fan. That's on you. That's on you, Nelly. You married a Florida State fan. That's what happens. I'm just saying.
I misspelled my daughter's name before. I get it. It happens, man. It happens.
Yeah.
All right. That was early. It was early. It's very early. I got it now.
Which one?
Lily.
I
put 2 L's in the middle.
Okay. That's obviously how I would have thought it was, too.
Yeah, there's only one. Because it is actually short for Liliana, which is anyway, there's a lot of controversy there. I wanted to name her Liliana. My wife was like, why would we do that? So now Anna is her middle name. So we broke it up and made it 2 names. So it's 1 L. Anyway, long story there. Okay, Brady J 1764. Buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame's chance of signing Elijah Golden, Caden Finley, and Evan Jacobson. So recruiting question. Go.
I'm going to buy Elijah Golden. I'm going to buy Caden Finley. I'm going to buy Evan Jacobson. And that's all I got to say about that.
All right, Forrest. Buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame attempting and successfully flipping Keemon Spell from Penn State.
I'll sell it. I mean, they're going to try. I'll sell it. He's a stud. But he seems to be pretty locked into Penn State right now. He shut down his recruitment. When Coach Sider came over, he was kind of talking to Notre Dame, but he says he's locked down. I don't know that they're going to give up on him because he's worth staying on. But for now, I'll sell it for now.
Buy, sell, hold, assuming everyone in the class signs. Buy, sell, hold, Notre Dame's 26 class, 25 class, 24 class.
I'm going to buy 26. I'm going to buy 25. And I'm going to buy 24.
Bang.
I love it.
There's just some I'm like, dude, I can't sell or hold any of those. Like I should have. I remember a couple weeks ago I said I shouldn't have done the thing where it's my cooking, my wife's cooking, my mom's cooking. You don't think I got a text message from my mom that day?
Oh,
I should have. So I'm learning that sometimes you just take one.
You went
just buy all of them.
You went against your mom.
I had a good explanation why. I said because my wife is closer. If I was back home, my answer would be a little different.
That doesn't matter.
She didn't take that well.
Nope.
She didn't take that well.
I think I could have told you that was coming. Yeah. I feel like I could have given you the heads up on
I was
that.
praying that this is the one show she doesn't watch. I should have texted like, Mom, today's show was terrible. You don't want to watch that. It's a terrible show.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a new one. Josh, CSP 77, buy, sell, hold. 26 recruiting class will be Freeman's best class to date and possibly the best class since Lou Holtz days.
If they close the way I think they're going to close, I'll buy that. I still think 23 and 24 are going to be in contention for that class for a couple reasons that we can discuss when that class signs. But I also still don't know, guys, if it's going to like. Here's the thing. Here's where it gets a little bit challenging because it's a more complete class than 2008. But I still don't know if it's better than 08 just from a recruiting standpoint. I mean, you had a 5-star quarterback, a top 100 running back, a 5-star receiver, another top 100 receiver. So Dane Chris, Jonas Gray's top 100 receiver. Michael Floyd was the 5-star receiver. You also had Deion Walker, who's a top 100 receiver. You had John Goodman, who I thought was a really good player. You had a 5-star tight end in Kyle Rudolph, another top like 200 caliber tight end in Joseph Fourier in that class. You had offensive line wise, you had Trevor Robinson, who was a top 100 player guard. Lane Cleveland and Braxton Cave were both top 250 caliber players in the offensive line. At linebacker, you had Darius Fleming and Steve Filer, who were kind of more edge players, and then Anthony McDonald, who were all 4-star players, top 250 players. Trevor Robinson at guard was the number 37 player in the country. Darius Fleming is ranked number 89 in the country. Steve Filer was ranked number 143 in the country. And Anthony McDonald was ranked number 221 in the country at inside linebacker. Then your D-tackle position was not good. You know, you had Hafiz Williams and Brandon Newman, but Brandon Newman was still a 4-star player. And then you had Capron Lewis Moore and Ethan Johnson at defensive end, who were both studs. You know, Cap was a top 250 player, and Ethan Johnson was a borderline 5-star. If he didn't hurt his knee the end of his, in the senior year, he would have been ranked higher, but he was number 32 player in the country by rivals. And then the secondary, you had Robert Blanton, who was a top 250 player and a stud. You had Jamor Slaughter, who was a top 100 player. And you had Dan McCarthy, who was a top 200 player. And I will take this. I've said this before. I will take this to my grave. I think Dan McCarthy would have been an absolute stud at Notre Dame if he didn't get hurt. Like absolute stud at Notre Dame if he does get hurt. That class was flipping loaded from a recruiting standpoint. It's just they had a lot of injury issues. They had the coaching change in the middle. They had 2 years of bad development. But like there's a lot of guys on that list that were big-time players in college football. And were big parts of the Notre Dame 2012 season. I mean, Michael Floyd ends up being Notre Dame's all-time leading receiver. I mean, that was a heck of a class. Could this class be better than that one? It's more balanced, but that class had way more 5-star firepower. There's nobody in this class as good as Michael Floyd. Nobody. I'm sorry. And that's my opinion of Michael Floyd then. I had Michael Floyd as a top 10 national recruit coming out of high school. There's nobody in this class that good. So that's what makes that one a little bit different. Just a little bit more firepower at the top of the board. But some of those guys broke out as seniors into 5-stars. Kyle Rudolph wasn't necessarily a 5-star as a junior. He broke out. So that could factor into it. But that 08 class was unbelievably good from a recruiting standpoint. We look back at that and not give that class the respect it had because some of those guys didn't pan out. You know, Dane Chris didn't pan out and a couple other guys didn't pan out quite as good as we thought they would. But we didn't know that at the time, and we don't know how this class is going to pan out. You can only evaluate them for where they are at the same level of development. And I also think that Marcus Freeman's coaching staff would have done a lot more with that recruiting class than that coaching staff did. I mean, Dane Chris had Ron Paulus and Charlie Molnar as his 2 quarterback coaches. That kid didn't have a chance. I mean, he didn't have a chance. Charlie Molnar is literally one of the worst football coaches I've ever been around in my life. He wasn't even like that. He was so bad that Mike Sanford wasn't the worst quarterbacks coach that Brian Kelly had. That's how bad he was. And at least Mike Sanford was a really nice guy. I like Mike Sanford as a person. I don't think he cares much for me because I haven't hidden my criticism of him as a coach, but I've never once said a bad word about Mike Sanford as a guy. But Charlie Molnar was 0 for 2. And there's 2 ways to evaluate, type of person you are and type of coach you are. And he was an offer on that one. And there was way too many offers in Brian Kelly's tenure. But man, that 2008 class was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous, man. Oh,
buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame and Penn State will once again play each other in this season's playoffs, but this time it won't even be close as Notre Dame wins by double digits.
Buy
as in that's the result, or buy in is that they will play?
That the whole thing. I'm buying all of it.
Okay.
I'm buying that they'll play again, and I'm buying that it won't be as close this time.
Yeah. The rematch is not going to go Penn State's way. I don't care what anybody says. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be real
who
ugly.
are the 2 most impactful players for Penn State in that game?
Tight end, gone. Defensive end, gone.
There you go.
Right. And they're not replacing them.
The most impactful players for Notre Dame are back.
Right.
Aeneas Williams, Jeremiah Love.
You could make a case for Riley Leonard.
Riley had some very big mistakes in that game.
It's fair.
Jaden Greathouse is back.
Right.
Drake Bowen's back. Christian Gray's back. Leonard Moore's back. Don Schuler's back. So, yeah.
We got a super chat from Brandon Plensner. Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it. Buy, sell, hold. With the amount of elite quarterback talent in the 28 class, Notre Dame should already be extending offers or at least approach the process differently than 27.
Buy. Yeah, buy. If you wait till next June, late June, to offer 2028 quarterbacks, you will not have much of a chance to get any of them. 100% agree with that, Brandon. 100% agree with that. Yeah, I'll buy that.
Thanks for the super chat, Brandon. Appreciate you very much.
Man.
Karen S.L.
It's actually Carson Jackson, but I think
okay. I got you. Okay, Carson Jackson. Buy, sell, hold. Malachi Fields will put up big numbers at the Combine after what will already be a successful season. This will lead him to being Notre Dame's first receiver taken in the first round since Will Fuller. This will also give Mike Brown a huge boost and start major fire in wide receiver recruiting for the 27 class.
I'll buy that as a possibility. According to Bruce Feldman, I haven't seen Malachi Fields, like work out like that. But according to Bruce Feldman, he is going to put up kind of freaky numbers. The only question that I have is what's his 40 time going to be? That would be because he was on Bruce Feldman. Actually, him and Will Paulding were both on Bruce Feldman's freaks list last year. And Malachi, he said that Will Paulding ran a 4.39 and squatted 600 pounds, which was basically confirmed by what you saw Will Paulding do on the Notre Dame video the other day. It was crazy. And then here's what he said about Malachi Fields. He goes, a former high school quarterback and cornerback. Could you imagine trying to play? Oh, never mind. Fields is coming off a breakout junior season in which he had 58 catches for 811 yards, 5 touchdowns after missing almost all of 22 with a broken foot. He has elite strength and power for a wideout. He has close grip bench press. He close grip bench press 365 pounds. Did 21 reps at 2025 with a close grip this offseason. He front squatted 355 to go with a 38-inch vertical, 10.7.5 broad jump, and a 4.18 in the pro shuttle and the 6.81 in the 3 cone. And he passed 22 miles per hour on the GPS. If he's that athlete at the Combine, and he has the year that I think we all have, then I think he'll have a shot to be a first-round draft pick, yes.
Here's my only pushback here, Brian. You tell me if I'm crazy.
Yes.
This is a definite possibility. If he goes in the first round, that's next June, correct? I think it's going to have more of an impact on the 28 class than the 27 class, because the 26 class will be signed and almost in school. And then the 27 class will be 6 months away from being signed. And so I just feel like that'll have more of an impact on the 28s and beyond as opposed to the 27 class. What do you think?
Possible, but if you look at it simply by it doesn't have an impact until the draft, maybe.
Right.
That's
the way I took this question.
Yeah, but even in May, there's still going to be big-time receivers on the board in 27 that they're going to want.
Okay.
And maybe flip. But it's also, you got to think about it, to be a first-round pick, part of his thing was he puts up big numbers. If the big numbers happen, you start having that impact even before. And then the draft thing is how you close on a kid.
Okay.
So, like right now, let's say where Caden Finley is. You're trying to close between you and Texas. Well, if you just would have had a 1,000-yard receiver that went in the first round and blew up the combine, all of a sudden it's like, hey, man, look what I can do.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if Malachi Fields was a first-round draft pick a year ago, he would have left and gone and been a first-round draft pick. There's a reason he came to Notre Dame, because he wasn't getting first-round draft per projection. He comes here, we give him a real quarterback. I coached this kid up, and look what we created.
Right.
So yeah, I could see that, because again, May gets them into that May, June. It's late April draft, early May draft, right? Now you get into that May, June visit period, and now you've got all that to sell. I think it'd have an impact on 27 as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll start off by saying I do believe that if Malachi Fields has a big season and puts up great combine numbers and has the season we believe he can, regardless of what round he gets taken in, I think that's going to have a big impact on Mike Brown's receiving or recruiting efforts on the trail. But I've said this before. Look, sometimes in the first round, where you get drafted also depends on who else is in your draft class. It's not necessarily like just your own production. I mean, we're talking about a kid who, Andrew Armstrong yesterday in the SEC had 78 catches for over 1,000 yards, only had one touchdown. He went undrafted as
and
ran
a 4.51.
Yeah, who
weird.
Tested pretty decent. So some of that depends, but I just looked at what the 26 projected prospect list looks like, because you never know. I mean, Carnell Tate was the number one guy on there, and he might not even leave after this upcoming season.
Probably, but he doesn't necessarily have to leave.
Yeah.
Do they have Jordan Tyson on there?
Jordan Tyson's on there. Eric Singleton was their number 4 guy on there.
Look, man. You got to think about it like this, Trev. The 2 best receivers in college football next year won't be draft eligible.
Yeah.
I mean, he couldn't go to the draft if they wanted to.
I mean, that class is going to be nuts, because, I mean, that could be Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, all 3 of the Clemson kids.
Yeah.
Jaden Greathouse.
Right.
I mean, like, that class is going to be nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be. If you need a receiver, that's going to be the year you want to definitely have a high pick. And Carson said that the S and the L are middle names.
Okay.
So he did respond to that. So thank you, Carson.
Yeah.
But he said it's Carson. So you see what I'm saying? Like, it's Carson.
Oh, yeah.
SL stands for my 2 middle names. So
2 middle names. The overachiever. Yeah. I like it.
That's some family connection right there. They wanted to give honor and respect to somebody in the family. I'll bet you I'm right on that. They couldn't just do one, so they had to give 2.
And that's why we went the other direction and named our kids after nobody.
You just named your kids the first 2 letters of the alphabet, apparently.
A and B, baby. A and B. We ain't messing around. Those are definitely not family names. All right. John A1, buy, sell, hold. Buy one, sell one, hold one. The following Notre Dame players will be named 25 All-Americans. Adon Schuler, Eli Raridan, Ashton Craig.
If I'm going to buy one, I would... Oh boy, I would probably buy a Don Schuler, hold Eli Raridan, and sell Ashton Craig, although I don't feel great about that because I don't know that it's a great year at center in college football. And the way they've done in the past is they kind of pick 4 offensive linemen anywhere and then a center. It's like they'll have 4 tackles in a center or 3 guards a tackle in a center, but they have a center. So, but it'd also be kind of hard because, but what if your center is not your best offensive lineman or even your second or third best offensive lineman, which may be true. So And I need to see him come back from the injury also. But I think they all have a good. What I like about the question is it's like all three have a legitimate chance to do that next year if the team is as good as we think it's going to be.
I'm with you.
My only issue with Ashton is I love Ashton, and I think from a talent standpoint, I think he should be in that mix. Problem is he's not getting preseason love, and I just feel like when it comes to offensive linemen, a lot of times if you're getting the preseason love, you'll probably get the postseason love because there's a lot of uneducated people that vote for this stuff. And especially and offensive linemen are hard to judge if you're a layman. You know what I mean? And so if he's not getting it now, I don't see him getting it later. That's the issue as an offensive lineman. So Joe Parr, buy, sell, hold at 5'11", 242 pounds. Keedron Young will be this year's Riley Leonard on 3rd and 4th and short.
I think there's a good chance for that. I'll buy that as a good possibility for sure.
Yeah.
Also want to point out that I was right. Carson said I was right. Dad and Grandpa both got trivia, so I like when I'm right.
T Shout 11. Buy, sell, hold.
Shoop.
Okay.
It's a guess.
Yeah, you're probably right again. Buy, sell, hold. This is more of a fun question rather than a practical question. I enjoy those.
Oh, goodness.
That being said, buy one, sell one, hold one. Jeremiah Love wins the Heisman Trophy and enters the top 10 in Notre Dame history for single-season rushing yards, at least 1193. The Great One will set a single game record for yards, finally dethroning Michael Floyd at least 272 yards in one game. There should be another one. Oh, there we go. Leonard Moore enters his villain role this year. He will not only be the highest-rated corner on the team, but in the nation. He will record at least 7 interceptions in a season, which ties both Xavier and Manti. He will also be an absolute menace in at least one game this year, recording at least 2 interceptions in a game, and one of those interceptions being returned for a touchdown.
Oh,
that's a lot.
Well, the one that I'm going to sell that I feel most comfortable selling is the last one.
Yeah.
This one.
Because there's so many.
There's a lot of things on there that could happen. I think he'll have a game with 2 picks. He could have a return for a touchdown, but the 7 interceptions is the one I have a tougher time with because I'm just like, dude, I don't know what stupid moronic coach is going to keep throwing to him after he's got 4. Like that's more of my my issue. But actually, now that I think about it, I forgot about the one for Jaden Greathouse.
I was just about to say.
Totally forgot about that one. That's the sell. Like, I forgot about that one.
That's a lot of yards.
Yeah, what's the all-time record for a game? I'm going to find that. It's not Michael Floyd for a game. Let me find it. It is receiving touchdown yards in a game. So he said, because Michael Floyd has 271 catches. That wasn't as high for a game. The most yards in a single game is Jim Seymour with 276 back in 1966 with Purdue. And you want to know why Steve Berline, Joe Theismann, who was Terry Hanratty, was, he had some good player back then. But Golden Tate, number 2 at 244. Jack Snow at 217. Jim Morse at 208. Bobby Brown at 208. Tied. Mo Stovall at 207. Golden Tate at 201. Tom Gatewood at 192. Jeff Samardzija 191. Last time a guy entered this list was 2009. And 3 times. You had 2 from Golden Tate and 1 from Michael Floyd. So, no.
That's crazy.
No, that he won't get to that number. The hold is that one. The buy is that one. Right there.
Yep.
I think that's the most likely of those 3.
Agreed.
Especially the second part of that. Like, I fully expect the second part.
With winning the Heisman being the most likely of the 3 options, that's saying something.
Yeah.
About the other 2 options, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but 272 yards doesn't even break the record.
Right. Yeah.
You're still 4 short.
Right.
Yeah. I was thinking Tom Gatewood when I was talking about Joe Theismann. I was thinking Tom Gatewood, not Jim Seymour. Tom Gatewood was Joe Theismann's receiver in 1970 when he threw for 500 some yards against USC. That's a fun one. This is, I believe, one of the last couple right here.
Buy, sell, hold. Football belongs on dirt. I assume he means natural grass.
Yeah. Sell. I'm fine with different types of environment. I think that's kind of what makes football fun.
Yeah.
Now there are certain types I dislike. I mean, I think the old school AstroTurf was pretty terrible.
Oh, the parking lot with the carpet on it.
Yeah, with
that
a
was awful.
thin layer of carpet on it. Yep, that was pretty
awful. That was awful. You probably played on that stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, I played a high school game on a field like that. We played it at Liberty Christian, or we played at Liberty. We played Lynchburg Christian Academy, where Gideon Davidson's from, Zach Rice was from, and they were back then they were a 2 tight end, 2 wing back, fullback offense. So I played corner. So they moved me inside the linebacker that game. First play of the game, they bring a wing back around. I step in the hole. I hit him hard. So he went backwards and we went to the ground, and my skin just on my elbow was just gone. You can actually, I think it's this one, you can still see it. Like there's like that. You get something bad. So I had wristbands on my forearms. So I had to pull those up over my elbows to just stop the bleeding. And because they had sand in it too, which made it freaking worse because then it burned. But that was like playing like street. We were kids. I mean, we played on concrete.
Oh yeah, all the time.
But it was like, okay, we're back to playing on concrete now in high school. This is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
This is great.
Yeah. So if it's that stuff versus natural grass, let's roll. You know what I mean? Like the only issue I ever have with natural grass is like at the high school level, there are some natural grass fields that are not kept very well,
and it's hard. And it's harder. It's more.
Yes. 100%.
Especially up north, it's cold and
100. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, do you guys remember how Notre Dame's field looked sometimes in the spring and late in the season? Like it was terrible.
Awful.
Terrible.
I mean, they would paint the grass. Remember that? I mean, that like it was bad. It was really, really bad. They needed to do this, and
they literally had to paint the grass, otherwise it would look brown.
Yeah, I mean that was the reality of the situation. So you can, just from a practical standpoint, obviously turf makes sense. From a football playing standpoint, it makes sense because you can get on there more often. You can play on the game field as opposed. I mean, that place was roped off when it was grass. Like you could not go in there, and there's a benefit to practicing in the stadium. You know what I mean? They don't do it all the time, but there's still a benefit to that. And when there's natural grass, that's just so much harder to do. So there's just a lot of benefits to having the field turf. And then in this area, most baseball stadiums and fields are turning to the turf, which is absolutely crazy. But I'll tell you what, man, it is a massive advantage because they can get out in January, February. If the weather happens to be nice that day, if you go out on a regular field, you're sinking and you're destroying your field. You know,
you can't be on it. I mean, you're literally not allowed to be on it.
Right. And it's awful, so you're doing fly balls in the gym, so anyway, I went off topic.
If you're going to ask me, like, what do I prefer to play on? A nice dry day on Bermuda grass.
Sure.
Like that is beautiful football because it's the smell of the grass, like, but at the same time, Vince, like, but if it rains that day, I would be praying for turf, especially as a quarterback or a receiver, but best place to play it, beautiful day, grass field, absolutely. But, the other thing too is you don't have the crowns on fields now like we used to have because
it's true. You don't need them.
Need it to have the water run off.
Right.
So,
you don't need them anymore.
Yeah. So I like that as well, but I'm good either way as long as it's well done. There's grass fields that I've played on that were terrible.
Right.
That's how we played on an NFL stadium. They had grass and it was the worst field I ever played on because we're just slipping all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've played on, I don't know that I've ever played on field turf, but as a coach being in practice on field turf, it's like, there's some things I really like about it, some things I don't like about it. But I've been on some that are really good and some that I felt like I was playing on like I'm trying to think of like you guys ever go to like gyms, like play gyms where they have like the really soft, like sand. It's like you're on that, not anything firm. And you're like, dude, this is not like, I just feel my ACL going out right now every time I start to do anything. And so it just depends on how well you keep it. And then there's some grass fields where you're running and all of a sudden you hit a pothole.
Yep.
There goes my knee,
Yeah, right. There it is.
So just depends on how well they're done.
That's hilarious. Berto 2121 buy sell hold between the position groups of O-line, D-line, and wide receiver. Which would you buy sell hold to be guaranteed the group will perform adequately without disappointment? Basically, which one are you buying to eliminate concern? To
perform adequately without disappointment. I'd have to go with the O-line on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Like the other day, we were asked something about this where it was more of like which one you wouldn't guarantee is going to be elite, and my answer was the D line. But if this one is kind of that exact opposite, which one would you want to guarantee that is going to be good? I would buy the O line. I would hold the D line and sell the receivers. And I don't feel good about that because you don't want anybody to struggle. But if you're good up in the trenches, you got a shot to be pretty good.
I'm with you.
Yeah. My order O-line, D-line, then wide receiver.
That's what trips me out about last year, though, guys, because when you think about last year's team for Notre Dame, they were not great up front on the offensive line. They had some moments, but they were solid. That's it. Their D-line was solid for most of the season, and at times pretty good, and at times not very good, but they weren't elite. Now, there were reasons why for both sides. I mean, by the end of the fourth game, you had lost Boubacar Traore, Jordan Patelho, Charles Jagasol. Actually, by the end of the fifth game, yes, you had lost Boubacar, Jordan Patelho, Jason Onye, Charles Jagasol, Ashton Craig, and Billy Schrouth was out and would not come back for about 4 more weeks. Like, that's why. But even with the Lions not playing great football, this team still went to the title game. Like, and didn't they didn't have to beat SMU and Boise on the way to the semifinals. They had to beat Indiana, Georgia, and Penn State to get to the title game. They had to go to Texas A&M and win a game to get to the title game. They had to go to USC and win it. So it just, that's what gets me so fired up about this season, because it's like, dude, I mean, what are the odds that much injury stuff happens again? I don't think it's great. So that's where I'm at. Like, I just think people underestimate, why'd that happen? Because they were way better in the skill positions than people give them credit for. That's why. And even the receivers who get a lot of crap, like, they stepped up when they needed to last year. Look at what the receivers did on the go-ahead drive against Texas A&M. I mean, I don't care if the only play Bo Collins made all year was that back shoulder play against Texas A&M. It was worth bringing him in, because you don't win that game if he doesn't make – you may not win that game if he doesn't make that play. I mean, you look at Jaden Greathouse clutch in that game. You look what he did the last couple games. You look what he did against Louisville. You look at Jordan Faison against Indiana and Georgia. I mean, they still stepped up and made some big plays last year, even though they get a lot of, crap for it. But, man, this team is in the secondary was elite. The linebacker room was outstanding. The running back room was elite. Like, I don't think people realize how kind of not good their lines were last year compared to other championship teams. And they still went to the championship game. So, and then of course Riley did what he did at quarterback from game. The Louisville game was when we first started to see like the Riley Leonard we hoped we would see in both phases of the game, running and passing. And then he built on it and he was good. But like, dude, this team, this is why I'm excited about this team, because I expect the Lions to be really good this year, and they're still going to be really good at all those skill positions we talked about. So it just gets me fired up about this team.
Berto 21-21. Buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame recruiting is trending in a new direction, consistent with the current times. They are 2 to 3 steps ahead in projecting the future landscapes of college football compared to other major schools.
I'm going to sell that. I mean, Mike Martin was a great hire by Marcus Freeman in the direction they're going with Mike Martin. But let's not forget, it took a guy leaving and another guy turning him down for him to go down that road. So I can't really say that they were like revolutionary in that. I think what it comes down to, it's not so much about being 2 steps ahead. It's you have a great product to sell and you have great salesmen who are able to successfully sell to people because they're real. They're genuine. Mike Denbrock doesn't have to pretend he cares about developing using young man on the recruiting trail, because he does. Mike Mickens doesn't have to pretend he's a great evaluator or cares about you as a young man or can develop you as a young man and just to get you there, because he does. You know it. You see it. Same with Marcus Freeman. Same with a lot of these coaches. It was that way with Dylan McCullough. It was, It's that way with a lot of these guys. And so it allows you to, like Al Golden was one of the least fluffy recruiters I've ever seen. He just was kind of matter of fact and dull, but it worked because he just was honest with kids. And I think that works. And then, of course, you've got a head coach that's just a dynamic recruiter. So, and he's hired good people that work their butts off. I mean, you talk about, man, it sucks to lose Chad and it sucks to lose Caleb Davis, and they did a great job at Notre Dame, but he gets Mike Martin to do one part of it. Then he brings in Jordan Blake, and I'm hearing great things about him. Brings in Myron Tungavaloa-Most. I'm hearing great things about him. And Carter Allmans now has a more prominent role. I'm hearing great things about him. So, like, that's what great coaches do. You lose great people, and you replace them with great people. And that's what Marcus Freeman, for the most part, has done at Notre Dame. And you got to give him a lot of credit for that. And I think a lot of that factors into this, not so much that they're 2 or 3 steps ahead about the changing landscape. I don't know that I think that's the reason why they're successful. Because as wicked as ahead of, 2-3 steps ahead that Marcus Freeman might be, if they're coming off of an 8-5 season, they're not recruiting like this. Not even close to this. So they got a great product to sell, and they have genuinely good people selling it, and it works. And that's what works. And they have and the product is what Notre Dame does on and off the field. That's what works.
Buy, sell, hold, shopping down another aisle, quote unquote, should be the inscription when Marcus Freeman earns his statue.
I would advocate for that. Yes, that would make me very happy.
I would sell it because it's
shopping down the right aisle.
It reminds me too much of Brian Kelly because he's the one that originally said it.
Well, it's a shot at him.
I know, but I just don't even want him involved.
Yeah.
Like I just,
I said, this is what happens when you hire a real coach.
Yeah. I want the gold standard or something.
I think Mile High GTB has it. I think this is the perfect one on Marcus Freeman. If this happens, it's this right here, Team Glory.
Right.
Because don't you think that's what Marcus, like if Mark, let's just say hypothetically that Marcus Freeman someday is, getting the College Football Hall of Fame or getting a statue or whatever, and we're old and we're around to see it. Hopefully we're alive then. You know what he's going to say? He's going to sit there. I mean, it might be 20 years from now, bro. I don't know if I'm going to be around right now. You know what I'm saying?
It's just a morbid thought.
Yeah. I'm hoping I can be here tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? But
sure.
I mean, what he's going to do. He's going to talk about thanking Jack for giving him a chance, thanking Pete, thanking Mike Denbrock, thanking Al Golden, thanking Mike Mickens, thanking all the players, he'll just spend the whole time talking about all the people that were so important to him getting there. That it's the Team Glory thing. So Mile High GTB, I think you nailed it. I think this is what we're having fun with some of the petty things that we'd want on there to take shots at Brian Kelly, but if we're being serious, this is the answer right here. It's Team Glory. So and that's when we talked about that yesterday, Trev. You and I talked about that yesterday. So that would be it. We did get one more super chat that I wanted to bring up, and then we are done, fellas.
Okay. ND Milton fan, thank you for the super chat. It's a great picture, by the way. I love that in the car with your kids. That's awesome. Buy, sell, hold. There is no position on the roster where the backup or 2 deep comes in and there is a gap in production. That's a bold statement.
I'm going to sell that because it's the same position that I always go back to when you have this conversation, and it's tight end. At receiver, I feel good about it. At quarterback, I feel good about it. At running back, I feel good about it. O-line, I feel good about it. Where there's no big gap in production. Because a gap doesn't mean 5 yards. A gap is okay, you're a 1,200-yard rusher and you're a 700-yard rusher, or an 800 or 900-yard rusher. But if Jeremiah is going to run for 1,300 and Kedron comes in and he runs for 1,150, that's not a big gap for me. D-line, I don't see a big gap. Secondary, corner, after Lennon Moore, I don't care how good you are, that's a tall task. But just tight end alone for me is the one where I feel most if you lose Eli Raridan, I don't know that Kevin Bauman and Jack Larson and Ty Washington are be able to do what Eli can do. And you'd almost have to kind of use them all differently. You use Kevin to get some of the blocking done. You use Jack in some of the pass game and Ty a little bit in the pass game and things like that. But And I don't worry as much about the secondary because I'm a believer that young guys can come in and be really good in the secondary. Like, I mean, Notre Dame's had a freshman All-American 2 of the last 3 years at cornerback. And honestly, if somebody would have got hurt in 2023, Christian Gray would have stepped in and been one. Did you see what he did in the only game he played starter minutes that year? He was ridiculously good against Pitt and against Bub Means, who got drafted that year. So, I'm not as concerned about secondary other than just it's not that they're young. It's just, is there anybody as good as Leonard Moore there that's going to come in? I mean, you could come in and be a good player, but you're not going to be anywhere close to as good as Leonard Moore is, most likely. And that would more of what my concern would be. But, like somebody said, linebacker, if Drake and Kingston went out, like I'd still think they'd be fine. I mean, yes, that's your 2 best linebackers, but if your linebacker rotation is now, Jaden Ausbury and Jalen Sneed and Bodie Cahoon and Madden Faramo, you're going to be all right. You're still going to be okay, and Teddy Rizak and those kind of guys, you're still going to be okay. That might be another one that I would consider, but even then it's like, but that's 2 different positions, like not one, so like, I think that's true for a lot of positions. If you lose 2 guys, like if you lose your 2 deep at 2 positions, like if you lose your best guys at 2 best guys, I'm more looking at like 1 guy, but like individual positions. But I don't know that there's going to be a big gap there.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there with the tight end, and then I would also make the argument for both boundary positions on offense and defense, boundary receiver and boundary corner.
Boundary receiver. Micah Gilbert would be a good football player, but and Cam Williams, but there's a big gap between them and what Malachi would do. I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think there'd be a huge change in production because, again, the question's about production. I don't think there's going to be a big gap in production if Kingston and Drake were out.
Agreed.
The quality of play might not be as good, but the production won't be as good. At the position you're talking about, your quality of play determines your production more so than the position you play.
Yep.
Where your middle linebacker at Notre Dame is going to have production. Is it good production or bad production? That's more of the question. So, yeah, that's a fair question. But I think that also kind of I like the question, the submission, because you're giving respect to how deep this team is.
Oh yeah.
But we're starting to get some of the questions in here where I think we're maybe not understand the difference between your 1s and your 2s. Like your 2s are still really good, guys, but there's a reason your 1s are your 1s. Like, is Notre Dame going to go 10-2 if they lost their whole starting lineup? No. But
look, they did a good job of stepping up last year. Lots of injuries, a lot of guys had to step up, and they still went to the national championship. So I think that's part of why people are feeling good about things.
Production was noticeably different.
Sure.
Like the lack of production at 3 technique and from a pass rushing standpoint was significantly there when Riley went down.
I think the micro gets overshadowed by the macro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's where people are coming from.
Your pass rushing at defensive end was noticeably less effective when Boubacar went out.
100%. 100%.
It just was. So even last year, other guys picked up the slack as a team, but the production at individual positions certainly was less. Now, in other positions, it wasn't. When Howard Cross went out, Donovan Hines was like, I'm actually going to play better than you were. And he did.
He did.
I mean, Donovan Hines played better in the last 4 games when Howard Cross is out than Howard Cross played in the 4 games prior, in my opinion. And there was other positions where that was true. But for the most part, I mean, Leonard Moore was out. Was he better than Benjamin Morrison? I don't think he was better than Benjamin Morrison, but he was as good as Benjamin Morrison. But his first 2 starts, let's not forget, his first 2 starts were not very good.
No.
He played hard against Louisville, had a big play against Louisville, but he also got beat a couple times against Louisville. He got beat a couple times against Georgia Tech. Just that inexperience of just being a second late. As he quickly figured it out. But even there was a noticeable and immediate drop-off, and then by the end of the year, he was really good. But, I mean, if Xavier would have gone out, there would have been a noticeable difference in production if he'd have gone out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that Notre Dame couldn't have made a run at the title because maybe some people – but the question was about gap in production. And I think that's the big key for me. So, there you go. It's a good stuff, guys.
Absolutely. All right, boys.
I still like you being covered up, Trev, when we put those things up now. And
I appreciate that.
And I just don't want people to be like, man, why you always why you always have Trevor out of there, man? What's going on?
I can't even tell you how self-conscious I am when it goes to like the right here like that. It's
man,
just,
I wish I'd brushed my teeth today.
I don't like looking at this. But anyway, I go up and apologize to my wife every time. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Yeah.
You have to listen to this every day. It's my bad. But anyway, thanks everybody for hanging out with us during our buy, sell, hold show. Really appreciate it. It's one of the more fun shows of the week, and we appreciate you guys getting involved and getting those questions in. It's what makes it fun. So if you are a premium message board subscriber, you can be a part of the show. You just got to get in there. You got to put your submission in early in the week, and then we'll get you on there. And it's one of the things that I like about this show is it kind of rewards our premium message board subscribers, and they get to be a part of the show and they get to kind of run it. And I love that. So definitely get on the boards.irishbreakdown.com. It's where you want to be. Not only do you get to participate in the buy, sell, hold show, but you get all the intel for all the recruiting happenings that are going on. And then, some extra stuff too. There's breakdowns. There's just all kinds of stuff over there. So you want to get over to the premium message board at boards.irishbreakdown.com.
Tomorrow, we're going to be talking D-tackle preview, and we're going to rank our top 10 running back units in all of college football.
Oh, that sounds familiar. Okay, let's do that. And then also this evening in about 38 minutes on Ivy Nation Sports Talk, Sean has an interview with Niele Ivey. And so they're going to talk about the new roster, what the season's going to look like, summer practices, all that fun stuff.
That's why the midweek mailbag wasn't in the middle of the week.
That's right. It was yesterday. I mean,
guys, I don't know what to tell you, but Tuesday is not a midweek mailbag. There's a reason for it.
Yes. But no, so definitely check us out here in a few minutes. Sean and I will have that show. And then, of course, rapid fire following. So you definitely want to check that out as well. So give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a notification bell, hit, because you never know when there's going to be a commitment show, as there was at the beginning of this show for the commitment that happened yesterday. So you never know what domino is going to fall next. So everybody, thanks for hanging with us. For Trevor, for Brian, I'm Vince, and we will talk to you next time on the Irish Breakdown podcast. Have a wonderful Wednesday night.